smoke weed. That like button. Hit the like button. Hit the hype button. Share the live. Tell a friend. Whatever we gotta do, man, to get the message out there, man. Get the numbers up. Yeah. But y'all know whenever we get in front of the computer, we got a lot to talk about. So this might be one of them long ones. I mean, Mike gotta go give me a shot of wine or something. You know what I mean? You know I ain't no heavy drinker. What it do? What's up, Delta? Yo, y'all see what's going on in the NBA right now? Trade deadline getting crazy. Look at that. Anthony Davis has been traded to the Washington Wizards. Washington Wizards, man, they just be doing anything. Sunshine! Sunshine, baby. Is the sun shining where you at? It ain't shining where I'm at. It's been ugly and cold. Straight up, man. See, hey, James Harden traded to the Cavs. Hey, Sunshine, I think you might be the reason. You heard me? They say wherever you at, the sun just seemed to be shining. I don't know. Maybe that's how you got that name, man. That's what's up. Yeah, I seen Anthony Davis play. You can tell skill wise. I went to one of the games when they played in DC. The Pelicans played in DC. And a lot of them big men ain't got skill. You can tell Anthony Davis has skill as a big man. Like he can drive. A lot of big men, they just big and that's it. Yeah, but let me yeah, it's brother. Hold on, yo. Let me yo, before we get to the topics. I'm interested in this trade deadline, yo, real quick. Cause they say James Harden ready to get traded. Ja Morant too. Hold on, y'all. Let's check this out real quick before we get to the
At Wayfair, we bring style to every get-together. We brought wings.
You mean these yeah, I think that was a bad.
We brought plenty.
I think that was a bad trade for the Cavs. James Harden like Joe Johnson. He chokes in the playoffs in the big games. That's how Joe Johnson is. That's why the Suns couldn't never win shit.
Nina Smith just checking the clock till it strikes on the NBA trade deadline. A day and 7 hours away.
Yeah, everyone is holding their breath to see where Giannis Antetokounmpo will go, or if the Greek Freak will just remain in Milwaukee. However, the Beard, James Harden, stealing the show on Tuesday. The NBA with a plot twist just ahead of the NBA trade deadline. James Harden traded the Cavaliers with a massive swing to get James Harden on Tuesday. Cleveland traded Darius Garland for Harden in a one-for-one deal that also sends a 2026 second-round pick to the Clippers, according to our Shams Charania. Two 2025 All-Stars with nearly identical salaries, but both teams hoping for a better fit with the swap. Harden becomes the first player in NBA history to change teams mid-season multiple times, of reigning All-NBA player. In 2020-2021, Harden was traded from the Rockets to the Nets after earning an All-NBA first-team selection. Last season, Harden was All-NBA third-team selection. Who better than our senior NBA insider, Shams Charania, joining us right now, just working off of no sleep whatsoever. But Shams, how did this deal come together so quickly for Harden?
I mean, a deadline spur action. And James Harden had a mutual option in his contract for next season. That allowed both sides, James Harden and the Clippers, to sit down and have a real conversation about the now and the future. And James Harden seeking not only a win-now opportunity, the Clippers are in the play-in tournament race, but also an understanding on a longer-term future for him, whether it's with the Clippers or elsewhere. And the Clippers just could not promise him anything beyond next season when he has a partial guarantee on his deal. And that's where the Cleveland Cavaliers come in.
Yeah, that was a bad
James
trade,
Harden believes that the Cavs fit both criteria for an ability to compete for a championship in the Eastern Conference and also a longer-term future with the Cavaliers. And how could both sides come together on a beneficial mutual path? That's where Darius Garland also comes in. He's 26 years old. The Clippers really believe that now and the future, Darius Garland allows them to move the page here from this kind of older team that they have. And we've never seen, really, it's very rare to see a star-for-star trade with this age gap. 26, Garland, James Harden at the age of 30.
Because it's not a star-for-star trade. That's why we never see it. Yo, this is not a star-for-star trade. This is a bad trade for the Cavs. They might go down there and mess up the chemistry.
6. Now James Harden and Donovan Mitchell will go compete for a championship in Cleveland.
Yeah, 36, but James Harden playing like he's still 26 out there on
the
court. The Cavs will be James Harden's 6th NBA team. And oh, by the way, the Clippers host the Cavs tonight at 10:30 Eastern if you like a little bit of drama. Another trade that you broke yesterday was the Grizzlies sending Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. Now, what does all that mean for the future of Ja Morant, though?
I mean, it means that there's a very real chance still that Ja Morant is traded between now and Thursday's deadline. We've seen the Grizzlies have traded Desmond Bane last summer for 4 first-round picks, Jaren Jackson Jr. yesterday for 3 first-round picks. So they are entering a rebuild. They've got as many first-round picks, pick swaps, second-round picks as any team in the league, including Oklahoma City and Brooklyn. This is going to be a rebuild now in Memphis. And so we'll see which team emerges. The Grizzlies have received multiple interested teams in Ja Morant. It remains to be seen over the next 24 hours. Will there be a Ja Morant trade? But those phone lines in Memphis are open.
You talk about those first-round picks. The Grizzlies are up to 12 first-round draft picks across the next 7 seasons. Shams Charania, a very busy man over the next 48 hours, hanging out with us a little bit more this morning. Thanks so much, Shams.
All right, let's show you what happened last night in Brooklyn with LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers putting on a show in front of the Barclays Center crowd. First quarter, Lakers up by 6. LeBron catches the pass, ball fake, then behind the back to Marcus Smart, who hits the floater. And that's just kind of what you were seeing all night from the Lake Show.
I want to see no highlights. All right, yo, so let's get to the business, man. All right, so yo, we first got to call out these fake Black Panther dudes, yo. Yo, my little cousin called me today, yo. He said, yo, why you always be going after the black people? And I told y'all this before, yo, but maybe some people be confused. Yo, I truly believe, and I think evidence shows that, yo, the black sellout is worse than any. They the worst of the community, yo. Like, yo, we know what white supremacy is, yo. We know what, you know, we understand that, you know. So, it's like to keep talking about that and keep focusing on that, I think that's just like, it's irrelevant. When we got these guys that's able to blend into the community because they look like us, and sometimes they share the same message, but we ain't on the same team. I think those guys are way more dangerous than anybody that's not black could ever be. Like these guys, the Black Panther dudes, or Black Lions, whatever the fuck they call. So I had a little back and forth with the Bird Song dude. And people in the comments like, yo, why you being a crab in the barrel? Ain't nobody been no crab in the barrel, man. I'm trying to open people's eyes up to what the fuck going on. We got a lot to talk about, for real. So look at this guy, y'all. Remember, y'all, he popped up out the blue. Popped up out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. Seemingly out the blue. Talking about we fighting against ICE. Like, yo, get the fuck out of here, yo. How you gonna pop up out the blue as a Black Panther, allegedly? With everything that we got going on in the community, and your first claim to fame is you want to fight against ICE and protect our brothers and sisters as immigrants. Man, get the fuck out of here. Now, they talking about, yo, remember, so the whole time he was talking, he like, yeah, you know, we stationed in Philadelphia, this our address, this our headquarters. Now they got a new headquarters. Within 3 days or a week, however long he been around since we known him, he got a new headquarters. But guess what, y'all? It's a caveat to the new headquarters. It ain't got no lights. So, of course, what he do? He might as well say hit the cash app. You know what I mean? Yo, he need to link up with Umar Johnson. Because at this point, I think they one and the same. Listen to this nigga, man.
To the people, I want to address a couple things that have been recently said. Number one, we have a new headquarters in West Philly. Everybody knows that when you get a new spot, you have to turn on the lights. Let me show you. This light switch. See, nothing happening. We got.
Yo, so my thing is, right? Who the fuck buys a new house or anything new, but don't have the money to turn the lights on? Off the rip. You got a new headquarters, but you don't got lights? It's just a fuck. Yo, you shouldn't have never got a new headquarters, man. That's like buying a house or renting a house and you can't afford first month rent. Like, what the fuck? Like, what was the fuck the point of even, renting the property? You can't afford the water bill or something. Like, it just makes no sense.
Got to turn on the lights in here. We got to turn on the heat. We got to turn on the internet.
Yes, Alvin, you sent it to me, right?
So the water, we got to get chairs. Yesterday we had a class. Class was packed. It was people sitting on the floor and standing in the hallway because there was nowhere for them to sit. You see what I'm saying? We need books. We got food we're bringing over here, but we need more food. We need the clothing. So I'm just putting this out here, right? Like, this van right here is one of the vans that we use to bring food and drop it off from state to state. Right now it's busted. Right now, first of all, the tags is expiring on it. Second of all, the power steering hose, right? It's like it got frozen, and then when we turned it on and tried to drive with it, it broke. We got to get that fixed.
Get it fixed then, bro.
We got to get it towed to the shop to get it fixed. That's going to cost money too. You see what I'm saying? There's a couple families out there who reached out to us, right? And they needed money to help stop their eviction process. There's a couple of families out there where they needed money to get a boot off their car that they use to take their children to school every day. So I just want to respond to you, those of you who are worried about, you just got all this money. We just got all this money, and we just helped like 13 different families stay in.
So people, so they did make money. He had to go fund me up or something. Where they get the money from?
Their house. We just helped like another 10 or 11 people get the boot off their car. We just paid for expungements. I can't tell you how many gun licenses we paid for in the month of December and the month of January. We paid for a whole bunch of gun licenses. We're paying for another gun license today. We're turning the electricity and all that stuff on. We just got the spot. You know what I'm saying? So it's we're finna fill it up with chairs and stuff right now. Fill it up with food. Fill it up with clothing. So I just want to put that out there for all of those of you who are wondering, where that money goes. Somebody said something about us putting videos on the internet. We put the videos up on the internet so you can see what's being done with your money. We put the videos up on the internet so you can see the resources that are available to you.
Like Umar
we put
Johnson.
The videos on the internet so that you can see us standing up for you and know that you can stand up for yourself the same way. All power to the people.
Man, this guy is out of control. Hold up, he ain't done though. He did another video where he's showing off motherfucking work equipment. What's the last video? What's that video we just looked at? What, he took it down? Oh, no.
Power to the people.
So here go the next one. Look, check this out, y'all.
All power to the people.
Don't forget he a rapper, y'all. / activist.
With Chairman Paul.
Third Bite Juice, what it is.
This equipment right here. This is Sony studio monitors, a USB Volt interface, an MXL CR30 mic, a little reflex sound filter, and a laptop with Pro Tools 12 HD on it, right?
He could have used this money to, whatever he got, he could have used this to get the lights turned on. The fuck he could have did.
In the Waves Ultimate Bundle, we're gonna give this away to one revolutionary artist, right? So come in here. We just upgraded some of our equipment. So as you know, a lot of those and a lot of brothers and sisters in the Black Lion Party are recording artists. So we keep a studio, right? So we upgraded. We're trying to bless some young, creative, revolutionary artists. So if you got songs where you're talking about standing up to police brutality, where you're talking about fighting hunger, where you're talking about systemic oppression, where you're talking about the Willie Lynch letter, where you're talking about Jim Crow laws, where you're talking about Jim Crow laws currently implemented in today's society.
Yo, listen to this nigga, yo. Like, yo, come on now, yo. I can't believe people be falling for this nonsense. This man is nonsense, man.
In the prison industrial complex, school to prison pipeline, if you talking about some real stuff, hit us up, DM us, come to 5323 with your material, spit something, and if we think it's revolutionary, we think you're going to uplift and educate somebody with it, we'll give that little personal recording studio to you. Again, you got the Personas, these are the Eris, these are the Fives, you got a UAD Volt audio interface, you got the little portable boot joint, you got the MXL CR30 mic, and you got the laptop with the Pro Tools HD and the Waves Ultimate Bundle on it. Power to the people.
Man, fuck out of here, man. Hold on, y'all. Let me do something real quick. Hold up. Hold on. Let's go to Jeffrey Epstein. Yo, so this Epstein stuff is crazy, right? But I think people was expecting an indictment. But I think people forgot the deal that he signed. He signed the deal, y'all, on his first rodeo.
My favorite feature is the scheduling. I don't have to track people down. They can confirm or reject.
I gotta put a thumbnail on this video real quick. I think sometimes when you don't use thumbnails, YouTube don't put you on the algorithm.
New name emerging in the millions of pages related to the Jeffrey Epstein saga that are being released by the Department of Justice. But this is a name you probably haven't heard before. Karyna Shuliaak. Now, she's not a victim. She's not a co-conspirator. Her name surfaces instead in Epstein's final phone call from jail in an apparent secret trust signed just 2 days before he died. One that was set to give her essentially a huge portion of his fortune and his properties and a diamond ring. Who is she? What do these documents reveal about Epstein's final plans? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, before we go any further, I got to say something. Look, I think family is the greatest achievement, but it is very scary for those out there who think, what happens if they're not around?
Hold up, y'all. Are we back? We back now? I just had to put I had to put a thumbnail on the video. I should have did it before we started the video. But yeah, y'all, I think people forgot that Jeffrey Epstein signed a deal, y'all, in 2008. And I'm going to take y'all through that deal. And that's going to explain the reasons why there's going to be no indictments. There's going to be no indictments. Ghislaine Maxwell is actually going to come home eventually, one of these years. She's not going to finish out that whole bit based off this agreement that he signed with the federal government, which is a wild agreement. But I don't think people must miss this. And it's pivotal when you wonder why nothing's happening with this shit. It's even crazy that the federal government will be willing to accept this type of deal.
It's a name that surfaced at the edges, buried for years beneath layers of redaction and different documents. And now we have millions of pages released by the Department of Justice, documents tied to one of the most disturbing sagas in modern criminal history. And right now, I want to talk about one woman in particular. This woman has quietly emerged. Not as a victim, not as an accomplice, but as something different. According to the New York Times, she was the last known confidant of Jeffrey Epstein, the woman that he apparently called just hours before he was found dead in his jail cell. And that woman, according to the records, is Karyna Shuliaak. Now, why does that name matter? Because buried in those same files is a seemingly secret financial document signed by Epstein just 2 days before he died. And this document appears to place her at the center of his final financial plans, outlines an extraordinary bequest. More than $100 million was set to go to her. And also, his private islands, his Manhattan mansion, a 33-carat diamond ring described in Epstein's own handwriting as given in contemplation of marriage? So who is Shuliaak? Well, the Times reports that Shuliaak is a Belarusian immigrant, a dentist, a woman who remained close to Epstein during his final days in custody. This is, by the way, when much of the world had turned away. She's almost invisible in the official record because everybody talks about Ghislaine Maxwell, but when you read these financial documents, she is central to his life, central to the future that Epstein appeared to be planning. And the questions now surrounding her, the mystery only deepens, because also buried in those files are details that are even more unsettling. An email from Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, congratulating Jeffrey Epstein on the birth of a baby boy in 2011. A diary entry from a teenage victim who writes that she was made to feel like a human incubator for what Epstein allegedly described as his superior gene pool. This is all incredibly unsettling. We're trying to unpack as much as we can from the Epstein saga and this deep dive into what his life was about and the questions that still linger. I mean, what else?
Yeah, I don't think he did either. I read a letter from a correctional officer yesterday, and we can go back through it. Matter of fact, let's go through it now. And this is what she said. Cause I did it on my phone and I was on the move. This is what the lady said. She's a correctional officer that worked at the jail, MDC. I think that's where he was at. He was in Brooklyn, right? Not that one. That one either. Well, it's on the live from yesterday. I can't find it. Now I don't want to slow the live up. But she said she think Epstein was swapped out. Some people came and got him in the middle of the night, and it wasn't nobody from the jail. Wasn't none of their triage nurses or none of that. And the next day he supposed to die. So let's find out who the fuck this lady is.
About Jeffrey Epstein and the world that he left behind. So if you're just joining us, or even if you've been following this whole thing from the very beginning, just want to lay out for everyone what's going on so we're all on the same page. For years, the name Jeffrey Epstein meant a few things to the public. Financier, the registered sex offender, the guy with the island, the one with the powerful friends.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside.
Israeli
You
spy.
just need a concept and a way.
The Mossad agent.
Whole ugly machinery of it all, that was locked up. It was sealed. It was hidden in vaults, redacted files. Now that changed, or at least started to change with what's been called the Epstein dump. It wasn't one big reveal. It was a slow court-ordered trickle of documents released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Millions of pages, emails, flight logs, depositions, police reports, financial records. A lot of it is exactly what you would expect. Disturbing, suggestive, grim, procedural, and it kind of lays out what this guy's life was like and who he was talking to. But in that mountain of paper, we have started to uncover threads that appear to deviate from the main story here. Threads that pointed beyond the criminal activity or the alleged criminal activity towards what he was building, who he was protecting, what he intended to leave behind. And that is where we get to Karyna Shuliaak, because she wasn't in the headlines about the victims or the trial. She wasn't Ghislaine Maxwell. Her name popped up in the financial documents, a trust, a will, the asset lists, the stuff that deals not with the past, but with the future, what Epstein planned. And one of the biggest funds that we have uncovered is a document called the 1953 Trust. It was dated August 8th, 2019. Now, Epstein signed it while he was in jail, right? This is as he was awaiting trial on federal sex crimes charges, sex trafficking. And then 2 days later, after he signed it, he's dead. And the document was basically his blueprint for what happened to his empire, valued at over $600 million at the time after he was gone. And by the way, we knew about this document. It was referenced in his will, which was publicized. It was mentioned in litigation over the years, but we really didn't know the exact content of it and what it shows us. It was kind of a secret. So this is big. And right there at the very top of the beneficiary list, Karyna Shuliaak, set to receive more money than anybody else, plus all of his iconic properties. And according to Business Insider, this document superseded an earlier trust from just January of that year, which had named apparently someone else at the top of the beneficiary list. So that document, which they say was called the Jeffrey E. Epstein 2019 Trust, it's actually no longer available on the DOJ site, by the way. We actually tried to find it, we couldn't. But Business Insider says they saw it, and so that would mean between January and August, something changed dramatically. Now that is the document trail that led us to her, and it raised immediate questions. Who was this person who suddenly became the centerpiece of his final plans? What was their relationship? What does her prominence to these files tell us about Epstein's inner world that we don't fully understand? What did she know? So we're going to get to all of that with our guests, but first, let me just quickly run through what we seem to know about Shuliaak from the public record. So the basic facts before we dive into the documents themselves. What do we know about her? Well, if you were to sketch a profile from the public reporting from outlets like the New York Times, Business Insider, The Independent, here's the picture that comes together. She's a Belarusian immigrant. She came to the United States in 2009 when she was about 20. She entered Epstein's life not long after, which is interesting, right? Because that was right after he was convicted in Florida for sex crimes. And this is...
Come on now. Come on, y'all. She came right down and bumped into Epstein. Man, she was sent to Epstein. Like, can we start keeping it real when it come out on this shit? She came down in 2009. And how long after did she meet Epstein? Hold up.
Reporting from outlets like the New York Times, Business Insider, The Independent. Here's the picture that comes together. She's a Belarusian immigrant. She came to the United States in 2009 when she was about 20. She entered Epstein's life not long after, which is interesting, right? Because that was right after he was convicted in Florida for sex crimes. And this is, again, when a lot of his old social circle had peeled away. In fact, a source quoted by the Daily Mail claimed that her willingness to stand by him after his initial disgrace, that only strengthened their relationship. Now, she was trained as a dentist. The Independent reports Epstein actually helped pay her way through dental school at Columbia University. She was licensed in Florida and California. She was even linked to a dental office in St. Thomas that shared an address with one of Epstein's shell companies, which is interesting, by the way, because in a previous episode of Sidebar, remember we showed you an image of a dentist chair that was found in a room on Epstein's island? We couldn't really confirm what that was, but it does make you think, does this have anything to do with Shuliaak if she's a dentist? I mean, you got to wonder if there was some sort of correlation there, considering her profession. But here's the thing. For much of their alleged decade-long relationship, and I don't know if it was on again, off again, or what the circumstances were, Shuliaak was actually married to another woman in Epstein's world. I'm talking about Jennifer Callan. Their wedding was in 2013, and lawyers for Epstein's victims have alleged that his network used sham same-sex marriages to help associates with immigration status and citizenship to keep it all under the radar. And Shuliaak and Callan, they divorced in 2019. Remember, this was right about the time of Epstein's arrest. Personality-wise, the descriptions, based on the reporting, they're all over the map. Some sources called her the inspector. that she was madly jealous of him, monitoring who he was talking to, his contacts. Others, like author Michael Wolff, who dined at Epstein's home, had this kind of friendship with him, recalled her as, quote, absolutely silent in company. But two facts are consistently reported, and they're crucial. First, she's widely believed to be the last person outside of the MCC, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, that Epstein ever spoke to. The Bureau of Prisons records show a 20-minute unrecorded phone call with her the evening before he was found dead. Okay. Second,
yo, how he just glossed past that? The BOP found a 20-minute unrecorded. A 20-minute unrecorded jail phone call. Now that is like he just glossed past that. Like that's typical. She's not his lawyer. All phone calls should be recorded. Why? The day before he died, he had a 20-minute unrecorded phone call with this girl. And Jesse Weber, Long Crime Network, just walked right over that shit like that's nothing. That's major, man.
Documents explicitly frame the relationship as profoundly significant to him. We're not talking about rumors here. We're talking about the cold language of a legal trust. The handwritten note about the diamond ring in contemplation of marriage. The staggering scale of this bequest. So we have this figure, young, from another country, professionally established with his help, legally entangled in his world, privately described as his intended fiancée, the last known person outside the jail that he spoke with. That's the who. But to really understand the why, like why her, why then, what it meant, we got to go to the documents themselves. And that is where the story moves from biography into something else, something a lot more complex. And to do this, I want to break it down, but I want to bring on a special guest, okay? Somebody who has been tracking all of the Epstein files that have been released. Justin Shepard, host of the Just in the Nick of Crime show, the podcast. It's amazing. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time. Before we even get into this specific issue, I mean, I have been following your account for the last 5 days. You have been very specific in what you've noted from the document release. Generally speaking, what do you think some of the biggest takeaways are from this Epstein file release in the last few days?
Well, I think that it's not even that I'm trying to be pointed with it. There is just so much information coming out. There are names that, we didn't know before. You're hearing about this secret baby clinic that he wanted to do. You're now hearing, things about Bill Gates, and you're hearing things about Donald Trump, and you're hearing things about Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons. Jerry Seinfeld, like massive names that are now being brought up and brought into this, things about Vladimir Putin. So it's really all over the place. One thing that's kind of a takeaway for me, it's really insane how massive this network was, how many very well-known people are in this network, are being named or somehow in this sphere of influence, if you will. Obviously, just being in that sphere does not equate to committing a crime. But just being in the amount of access that Jeffrey Epstein had to these people, and nobody really knew about it until this whole document dump started coming out. It's almost mind-boggling.
And again, let me just put the caveat. Somebody might know Epstein, somebody might have been in his orbit per se, doesn't mean that they were involved in criminal activity. Correct. Or had knowledge of criminal activity, but obviously, being mentioned with him is so toxic. And the interesting part about this too, what's happening, and before we get into Karyna Shuliaak, the Clintons, right? The Clintons have now agreed to testify on Capitol Hill about Jeffrey Epstein. I was listening to Cuomo last night on News Nation, and he had on Vicky Ward, and he asked her, what would you want the Clintons to be asked? And she was basically, I want to know, what were they expecting from Epstein? What did they think they were going to get? What do you think about the Clintons and what they might testify to regarding him?
So the Clintons are an interesting group of people. Bill Clinton, going back to even his time in office, even his time as governor of Arkansas, there have been rumors surrounding him with impropriety with young girls, et cetera. I'm not saying anything illegal, but just those rumors and speculation have been there for decades. At the same time, when you look at kind of everything that's gone on with Congress and the potential contempt, because I believe that they were going to vote for a contempt hearing later this week, I think possibly tomorrow, when they decided all of a sudden, okay, well, will go ahead and testify. I don't know what they're planning on doing, but here's what I do know. Both of them are incredible. Bill and Hillary Clinton are incredibly intelligent individuals. Both have law degrees. He's a Rhodes Scholar. She came from Yale. So whatever they're planning on doing, there was in my opinion, there was a method to their madness in delaying their testifying.
Don't
and
try
I'm
to
very
make
interested to kind of
excuses
see
for
what
him.
comes out of this.
I think we all are. So we'll see what happens there. But now I want to go on to the main focus of this episode. Karyna Shuliaak, okay? Is this somebody that you knew before? Is this somebody, her name surfacing so prominently in these financial documents? A, what does that signal to you? And B, have you heard about her before? What do you know about her?
So I'll answer the second one first, which is I had not heard about her before until this recent, document avalanche that we got. As far as everything, I mean, he's looking at leaving her a 33-carat diamond. I should have looked up what that was worth. I have no idea, but I would imagine millions and millions of dollars. The island itself, there was another $50 million in liquid assets, plus apparently he was looking at a ranch and possibly a Paris property. So obviously this person was somebody who meant a great deal to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the reason for that, I'm not exactly sure. I also find it interesting that this will was signed by him 2 days prior to his death.
Yeah.
Yo, but you factor that in with the 20-minute unrecorded phone call, then you know it's some bullshit going on. See, that's why I only watch them to get the information. Now, we very seldom run with the narrative that they pushing over here. Come on now. He signs everything over to this girl. The next day he has a 20-minute unrecorded, or the day before he has a 20-minute unrecorded. Day before or after, I can't remember what they said. He had a 20-minute unrecorded phone conversation with this woman. On a jail phone call, which was unrecorded. I don't believe that. But at least that's what they saying. And you don't know what's going on. Then he dies the next day. Man, come on now. We gotta tighten up.
Isn't that funny?
It's hard to overlook that.
Yeah, because that would seem to suggest to me that the theories out there that he was killed, I don't know if that necessarily lines up. I mean, it would make more sense if he was getting all of his affairs in order and 2 days later did something to himself versus 2 days later he was killed, or some will say, oh, he knew he was going to be.
No. Well, he was getting ready for his escape. Yo, this is not a credible news source, y'all. They part of the agenda. They part of the system. So for people that go to Law and Crime Network to try to get the truth, yo, you are not getting the truth there. They is part of the system. Maybe he was trying to get his affairs in orders, man. And he used her to do it. He was trying to get, he knew he was ready to make this escape. So he needed to get some money. We need to have all his money in line. Or readily available is a better word to use.
Killed, right? I mean, that does become a question.
I do think it changes the public narrative a bit. It's like either he knew it was coming, so that means one of two things: either he did it himself, which is in this case I would say the more likely outcome, or he knew somebody was coming for him. But I think that it's probably more the former than the latter.
Of course it is.
So let's talk about this, because I think the financial documents tell a lot of the story. There was this shift, apparently, from this earlier document in January of 2019 to the 1953 trust in August, again, that he apparently signed in jail just 2 days before he died. What does that tell you, right, about Epstein's state of mind? What does it tell you about his priorities? That's what we're talking about. So I want to talk about the two fixers that are named alongside here. So you have Darren Indike and Richard Kahn. And from a legal and a practical standpoint, their central roles as executors and trustees. Do you know anything about them? Have you heard about their names before? Does it tell you anything about the structure of this?
They're another one that I had not heard before this whole myriad of information came out. But the thing about Epstein is you can say what you want. He was obviously a very vile human being. He was a trafficker, a convicted pedophile, or convicted trafficker, predator. But he was brilliant. You can't deny that. So he surrounded himself with people who he knew would maintain his secrets, do what he wanted, and even in death, that I think still stays true. Now, to answer your question, the shift, for whatever reason, he he really wanted to make sure that she was very well taken care of, and other people who were close to him were taken care of. Because I believe that we have a $288 million estate. He's got 44 benefactors. Obviously, Karyna is the one who is benefiting the most from this, or is getting the most from this. His brother was going to get $10 million. There was somebody else that was going to get $10 million.
I think Maxwell.
Yeah, it was Maxwell. Thank you. Was going to get $10 million. So these are all people who were very close to him, very loyal to him, that he was making sure were well taken care of. So I think that basically what this tells me is that these are the people who he's rewarding for keeping his secrets, for keeping the structure, for doing everything that needed to be done to keep his world operating.
And by the way, just to be clear, we don't know for sure why he gave the money to everybody, whether or not it was, like you said, to reward. But it does beg the question, and I'll get into this a little bit more. The government's saying right now, the Department of Justice, there's nobody else to investigate, right? There's going to be no more criminal prosecutions as of right now. When you hear about her and you hear about the money that he wanted to give her, it didn't work out, and I'll explain that away. I'll explain it too.
And I'm going to show y'all why nobody else is going to be investigated after this video. So that's what this is about. I'm going to show y'all the real reason why there's not going to be any arrest.
She's ever been interviewed. I don't know if she's ever been sat for, interrogation.
Not that I've seen. Mm-hmm. Not that's been released yet, at least.
By the way, and this is also something to note as well. You put aside maybe the conspiracy theories about what happened in his death. This 20-minute unrecorded phone call that she had with him the night before he died. So maybe the last person that ever spoke to him. What do you make of that?
I would say that somebody who had intimate knowledge of him, who was in an intimate relationship, who had that final or one of the last phone calls he ever had, to not sit down and interview them, to know find out what they know, it seems a little suspicious to me. It makes you question, why wouldn't you do this? At the end of the day, yes, people want names, people want to know who's implicated in this, but at the center of this, there are a bunch of victims, a bunch of survivors who deserve answers as well. And if for nothing else, this is supposed to be the Department of Justice. The only way they're going to get justice is to have answers, and this woman could have a lot of those answers. So I'm with you. Why not sit her down and at least see what she has to say, do a recorded interview?
And by the way, I know they're still going through the documents. I don't know if there's something to suggest maybe there was some sort of interview with her or some sort of conversation. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe stand corrected. I don't know. But I do want to go through what we seem to know from these financial documents that put Shuliaak at the center of the story. So you have this foundational document. It's the Jeffrey Epstein's last will and testament, and I think that funnels the money into the trust. But what I really want to get to is the 1953 trust. So it's the one that names Shuliaak. And you have this particular section, and it reads, to Karyna Shuliaak, if she survives me, $50 million. In addition, the trustees are directed to purchase an annuity for the benefit of Karyna Shuliaak in the amount of $50 million. So that is the headline, $100 million dedicated to her. And then you have this next section, 2.3b, really breathtaking. It lists the specific properties for her. All of my interests, Zorro Ranch, New Mexico, the island known as Little St. James, the island known as Great St. James, 22 Avenue Foch, Paris, 358 El Brillo Way, Palm Beach, 9 East 71st Street, New York. Justin, these are iconic properties, the islands, the townhouse, the ranch. This has all been under a part of an investigation. Leaving it to her, thoughts?
I mean, it's a lot for somebody in their 30s. I mean, you're talking about millions, tens of $1 million of property, maybe more potentially, but I mean, it's a lot, and you have to question, why is everything going to this one person? Why are
who's why are you
not liquidating it? Why are you not having the state to do that?
That's what you need to find out. Who is she related to? Like, see, they always try to be surface with the conversation. Like, Long Crime Network wants to give you the information. It's like they want to keep you from thinking. They want to tell you what to think. How about who is she? Who is her parents? Who is her grandparents? That's how you find out why she was chosen to get this money. Who is she connected to? Not just, it's bigger than her. Like they talking surface level. No, fuck no, it ain't just her. Who is she really? What's her background? Not her background at Epstein, but her background in general. Who's her parents?
Why are you?
And what was their business dealings with him?
The method behind this, or the motive behind giving this woman all of this? There has to be a reason, and I don't even want to speculate what that reason is, because I have no clue. I don't know what's going through the mind of a madman, especially 2 days prior to his death. But it's very interesting, and I think it's one that definitely deserves a question that deserves a little bit more in-depth conversation and research. Conversation with her, perhaps.
Yeah, and apparently there was another section that created a separate multi-million-dollar fund just for her. You wonder if that's to cover maybe operating costs for these states, like taxes, staff, upkeep. But then you go to pages 12 and 13, okay? And there are what seem to be handwritten notes in the margins. So next to the description of that 33-carat diamond ring, the handwritten note says, I had given to Karyna Shuliaak in contemplation of marriage in the event the marriage is not consummated. Interesting. You know, Justin, it seemed like he was going to be long-term with her.
It does seem that way, and maybe that's part of it. At this point, I haven't seen. Do we have any idea how long he was with her? How long they had been in a relationship?
So I mentioned before that she was in his orbit from like 2009. Like, so he'd been. I don't know like when they started, if they were on again, off again, but they were basically together for a little bit, seemingly, and she had known him for quite a bit. So it does raise again a question about, you know, what did she have access to? Because there's been so much talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, right? So much talk about her being his number two, his associate, his girlfriend, and there's not a lot of talk about Shuliaak. And I'm not saying, by the way, that she has any knowledge or was part of anything that Maxwell or Epstein were up to. But again, this kind of money transfers are interesting.
No, I would agree with you. And, you know, again, everything at this point is speculation, and it's very strange because things that you would once have said to anybody else, oh, this is just an absolutely wild conspiracy theory. Some of those things are coming out in these documents as apparently truth, and perceived truth, I should say. And so it's kind of hard to even guess what's reality and what's not with some of this, but you almost wonder. I'm trying to do the math. I know she's in her 30s now. If you go back to 2009,
it ain't all Jewish people, man. But it's it's like that with every community. The problem. See, the thing is, good thing that y'all don't have a whole propaganda machine working against y'all. Slandering y'all name and making y'all seem like something that it ain't. Not to the extent that Black Americans have faced over here in this country.
In her late teens, early 20s, when they met. And, I almost wonder, was she being groomed to take over this empire for him?
You make a really good point. And by the way, I should tell everybody, all of this money, all of these properties that the Epstein wanted it to go to, including her, didn't work out that way. The money of the properties didn't go. The estate went into a trust, which was used to pay out all the victims, the legal fees, the expenses. The New York Post reporting that now it's just under $130 million that's left. It's all tied up in the U.S. Virgin Island probate courts. I mean, do you know the status of that, Justin?
You should know the status of it. This got a whole research team. The fuck you talk? Why would you ask him? He's just a YouTuber, right? You got a whole research team behind you, man. Y'all know Law and Crime Network is backed up by a soft bank. Like, this is a huge organization. I think they own Newsmax, News Nation. I think they are owned by Jelly Smack, which is a digital marketing firm.
Probate goes slow, and that's what I heard too. About 127 million still tied up, and that I would imagine it's going to be for a long time as you continue to victims come forward and try to stake their claims, to be compensated for the abuse that they went through. I think that the odds of her receiving anything, it will be years before she does, if she does at all.
I want to look at a different kind of document now. So these are apparently the emails from Shuliaak to Epstein, herself. We have two I want to read. The first is from May of 2012, and it reads, I love you very much. You will always have me, no matter what. as long as it makes you happy. The
Wow.
second, from June of 2013, says, you have
known-
absolutely ruined me today. Each minute
A known pedophile. Like, this is crazy. Yo, we live in a wild world, y'all.
I am struggling to not cry. Justin, sometimes very tough to make sense of what these emails could mean, particularly, I mean, you've been going through how many communications and messages. Look at the thing with Peter Attia. I mean, my gosh, you can go back and forth with that. Anything you take away from these kinds of emails? And by the way, so much of this is documented. He had so many communications through email, shared so much through email communication.
So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot through email. And to me, and I want to say to that point for a moment, it's insane to me how many very, very wealthy, powerful people just communicated so nonchalantly with him with some pretty incriminating, verbiage, like they never thought it would. I mean, I guess I'm sure they never thought it would be seen. But, in my mind, and I know, you're an attorney, in my mind, I always think, well, if I'm going to send this email and it's going to be seen 5 years from now, am I comfortable with what it says? And it's like none of these people who are supposed to be these brilliant, highly intelligent world leaders, businessmen, et cetera, they're all just, emailing these things. And it's just, and that kind of blows my mind. Now, to answer your other question, I think, and this is my opinion, I think that what you have is a situation of young woman he met when she's like 20 years old. He's probably in his 50s or 60s at this point. Again, I'm not doing the math in my head. But, I feel that this is a grooming situation. So, you go back to what we saw last year with, the Diddy trial. We'll use this as an example.
Oh, there
you
we
saw
go.
these women.
There you go. Yo, Diddy, take Diddy out though. Diddy is not nowhere near on the level of Epstein. I hate when they try to make that analogy. Diddy and Epstein situations was 100% different.
Who had great days with him. You would see the emails and the messages when they had great days with him, and you'd see the emails and the messages when they had bad days with him. At the end of the day, Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted predator. We know what he did. There's no question about that. And so I would imagine you have a young woman here trying to make sense of this much older man, this relationship that they're in, that he's kind of pulling the strings on everything, and she's struggling with it. We see that oftentimes in cases like this when you have people with a lot of power and then a much younger dynamic.
Diddy wasn't trafficking children. This man was trafficking children. He had a whole child trafficking ring. Diddy was having sex with his girlfriends with strippers and escorts. Like, that's not the same, y'all.
Also have this diary entry I got to mention as well. Now, I don't know who this is from, but this is kind of making a lot of headlines too. And as we're just talking about the writings, we're talking about communication. And the handwriting is kind of difficult to decipher, but this person writes about feeling like a, quote, human incubator, claims that Epstein talked about creating a superior gene pool. She mentions the pressure to play piano as well as the reason that she was chosen.
So we got kids out here. It's the Island Boys, Jeffrey Epstein kids. It may be Island Boys' his kids, yo. Because this picture resurfaced again, right? Of the Island Boys. It looked like kids that could be the Island Boys. And Jeffrey Epstein picture together. Oh shit. I messed it up. Is this what they talking about? Is this the superior gene pool he's referencing? Is that them? Look like it could be them. I think I did a video on it when it first happened. Look like that can be them, y'all. What y'all think? Check them out. Their careers taking off. And, they kissing each other and shit. They doing a whole bunch of weird things. They weird in themselves. Look at them. Who the fuck does this to themselves? Look like Sideshow Bob. Look like characters on The Simpsons. What the fuck? Is that what he's talking about? Maybe. Possibility.
You've seen stuff about that, Justin, right? This idea, was there a secret child or something?
Yeah, there's supposedly, and I believe, don't hold me to this, I believe I saw this morning right before I came on to speak with you, something that where Sarah Ferguson had, congratulated him.
So 2011 email from Sarah Ferguson, casual congratulatory note.
They cut him off again, man. They edited him. He said some other things that got edited out. This is the second time they edited him while he was speaking.
Don't know if you're still on this BBM, but heard from the Duke that you have had a baby boy. Even though you never kept in touch, I still am here with love, friendship, and congratulations on your baby boy, Sarah XX.
So, you know, you look at that and you look at the funding that he was trying to do, you know, allegedly trying to get into, as far as my wife and I were actually talking about this, because at this point nothing's off the table. It's like, why would you want to have this secret facility? And I, well, if you're into trafficking children and you can grow your own children that have no record, you know, that's kind of, and I coupled that with another email. I don't know if you saw this one between him and a physician, where this physician, or I believe well-known, renowned neurologist, I forget his name off the top of my head, gives him a casual hint, and this is going to be disturbing, so I'm sorry. I mean, at least when you look at it in the context. And this physician, this doctor, is saying how babies, newborns, will suck harder on their pacifiers at the sound of their mother's voice. And it's just, that comment alone isn't disturbing, but when you look at it in the context of who it's being sent to, you know, I don't think your mind can help but go to where your mind goes. And so you have all of this stuff where he's now putting himself with babies, you know, like you said, the human incubator thing, with this potential secret facility that he's wanting to fund. There's just a lot of very, again, strange things that a month ago would have been outlandish conspiracies that are now we're seeing in writing and documents being dropped.
Look, speaking of that, right? Y'all remember this girl? It was a girl years ago. They say she disappeared. And she was screaming and hollering about Jeffrey Epstein. In 2009, a model from Mexico fled one of Epstein's parties screaming they were eating people. Yo, this is crazy, y'all. Do y'all remember this? So she knew about the murders. This is her words, not mine. But she ain't know they was eating people. Like, yo, this is crazy. And she left this after she left one of his parties. Think she messed up in the head? I don't know. I don't know. They said they ain't saying a sense. She was quickly arrested and disappeared. Where's she at? Somebody need to get an interview. See what she got to say now if she's still around.
By the Department of Justice.
And him with this fascination with Putin and Russia.
I bet she ain't. I'm willing to agree with you.
Chasing around what appear to be young girls, and a video and a picture of
you
know, Andrew on top of what appears to be a young girl. It's very hard to make sense of it all and try to have a connective tissue, but given what we know about Epstein and given what we know about Ghislaine Maxwell, a lot of this just appears to be so dark, so sinister, so disturbing on multiple levels. I'll give you the final word, Justin. What else are you going to be looking out for as you continue to go through these?
All right, so look, right. So the whole premise of this video is to explain to people why there will be no arrest. And in order for people to understand why there ain't going to be no arrest, you got to go back to his first plea deal. When Jeffrey Epstein was charged in Florida in 2008, and this is what ultimately is going to get Ghislaine Maxwell home too, because she wasn't ever supposed to be arrested. So he signed a plea deal stating that no one else could ever be charged. No co-conspirators could ever be charged with his crimes or with their crimes that they committed involving
a federal
Jeffrey
judge
Epstein.
ruled this week a court can.
So listen to this, y'all. This from 6 years ago.
A federal judge ruled this
God
week
damn.
the court cannot invalidate.
But for some reason, people seem to miss this. Or maybe people never seen it. But this is the reason why there will be no indictments. This is the federal government, who a lot of people praise when they lock up Durk or Big U or one of these rappers, or, you know. This is the same group of people that when the federal government put information in paperwork, people just run to believe it. But they signed a deal with Epstein in 2008, knowing Epstein was involved in all these heinous crimes, knowing Epstein was white mailing people, because we call it white mail, not black mail, because typically the white males that deal in this type of behavior. So I think we need to, I think they use the term black to demonize people, to you know, to put a dark cloud on situations, you know, blackmail, blackball. You know, I don't know, yo. I just think when it comes out of this, I think this is more white male. You feel me? That's just what I think. But this is the reason why there will be no indictments moving forward in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Listen to it.
A federal judge ruled this week a court cannot invalidate a non-prosecution agreement against Jeffrey Epstein after his death in prison last month. Epstein reached that agreement with prosecutors in 2007
a non-prosecution
to avoid federal sex trafficking charge.
He signed a this is how Ghislaine Maxwell gonna come home, y'all. He signed a non-prosecution agreement. And they're gonna explain what this agreement was.
So the judge in Florida said earlier this year, those prosecutors violated the law and Epstein's victims could get their day in court. Now the court says Epstein's death has removed the basis for the victim's request. Deborah Blum is an attorney and she joins us now with more to talk about all this. Good to see you.
So this was an illegal deal, but since he died, they can't nullify the deal. They can't reverse it. Now that brings into question, you know, more conspiracies involving his death. Now that he is dead, this illegal deal that he signed with the prosecution cannot be rectified. It cannot be overturned. This is why nobody will ever be charged with their crimes that they committed with Jeffrey Epstein. And this is also how Ghislaine Maxwell is going to get out of jail eventually.
Good morning.
So remind our viewers again about Epstein's deal with prosecutors in 2007 and why the judge says it violated the Crime Victims Act.
So that's really simple to answer. In 2007, there were victims, and, you know, obviously we know that there are a lot of them, and those victims brought their issue to the federal government, to local law enforcement, and the federal government was in the process of investigating and prosecuting. But what happened is that they reached a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein in 2007, and then in January, February 2008, the federal government wrote to those crime victims, their attorneys, and said, we're still investigating, and didn't disclose that they had reached this non-prosecution agreement. And then later on in 2008, he took the state plea deal, which was very unorthodox, because when he was in prison, he was allowed to leave 6 days out of the 7 days of the week, which as a criminal defense attorney, my clients would dream to have a deal like that.
So is this the same agreement that protected any co-conspirators, any sort of blanket?
Yes. So what happened in
let me play it back for people that missed it. Just listen to what this lady asks. That's why nobody's getting arrested, y'all. These motherfuckers is able to get away with doing some of the most heinous things in the world. We talking about alleged murders, sex trafficking, and nobody will ever be charged because Jeffrey Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, the federal government allowed him to sign a deal that guarantees no further prosecution by any co-conspirators.
Is this the same agreement that protected any co-conspirators, any sort of blanket?
Yes. So what happened in this ruling by federal judge Mara, he said that he's not going to undo the plea deal. It still stands and it protects the alleged co-conspirators. So their names haven't been disclosed, although we know the names of 4 of them or more. I guess the reporters found out who they were. But what Judge Mara said is that they weren't named parties to this action, so they don't have a chance to respond. We know that the U.S. government is still looking into them, and should they have an indictment against them or an investigation against them, their attorneys would have to argue that the plea deal provided them immunity and that they should not be subject to prosecution.
Some
Now look,
of these alleged co-conspirators could also be involved.
That's what Ghislaine Maxwell is arguing now. She filed a motion with the court. That's how I found this out. She filed a motion with the court. And the basis of this motion was this plea deal that he signed. She was never supposed to get indicted. She was never supposed to get prosecuted. She was never supposed to get arrested. Now, what the federal government now is saying that this deal, this illegal deal that was signed in Florida, has nothing to do with New York. That's a lie. Federal government law binds all states. So if he signed a deal in Florida stating that there be no further prosecution by any co-conspirators, that's supposed to be law in every other state. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested because she was scapegoated. You know, she wasn't as important, I guess, to the system as Jeffrey Epstein was. But ultimately, she's going to get out because of this. Y'all going to see it. Remember, I told y'all first.
In the case that's being built here in New York. So that was in Florida, but we don't know if that agreement also protects them from whatever was done in New York.
Correct. You know, as a defense attorney, the U.S. government is the U.S. government. So it's my position that if somebody had a non-prosecution agreement that provided that individual with immunity, that should apply to the entire U.S. government.
Right. Same thing I just said. But the federal government is saying no, that's not true. Like, yo, it's crazy, yo, what's going on, man. It's crazy what's going on. Same thing I just said. And this is a lawyer talking. The federal government binds all states. If you signed the deal in any state federally, it's supposed to be honored in every state. This ain't got nothing to do with Diddy. What Epstein did was far past anything Diddy was a part of.
But the district attorney's office is saying, the United States Attorney's Office is saying that it only applies to Florida. So should there be acts here in New York, which we know that there are, that they could be named as defendants.
All right, so the thing that I keep thinking about throughout this
now look, y'all, this was 6 years ago. Ghislaine Maxwell just signed this. She just filed this paperwork last year. Look, this was 6 years ago when this thing happened. 6 years ago. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, Ray. I don't know why they keep mentioning Diddy, yo, when we talking about Epstein. Like, if you notice, we're not even talking about Jay-Z. No, we focusing on, the real culprits.
Tale is the victims, and they are, for lack of a better word, not going to have their day in court, at least with Jeffrey Epstein. What happens to them going forward?
Well, they're going to get to have civil cases. Some of them do, I believe, already have civil cases. The judge...
Let me tell y'all something about the civil case, too. Yo, a lot of times, when you file a civil lawsuit and you settle a civil lawsuit, you can no longer speak about the case. So when you wonder why some of these people aren't speaking, it's because when you sign, when you accept, any type of settlement, you can't go back and sue again. That's part of the paperwork that you sign. This case is officially over. And I'm sure in their situation, because we talking about sex trafficking and we talking about high-powered individuals, you know, people that got a lot of money, people that got a lot of influence. There's going to be a provision in that deal that states that you can no longer speak about this. You can't do no interviews. You can't talk about it on any public platform. So you're not going to see a host of victims speaking out. You know, for the ones that didn't, for the ones that signed, and probably most of them signed deals with their accuser, they're never going to speak about the situation. So it allows some of these pedophiles to fly under the radar.
Did make a tremendous ruling in their
favor,
saying that the U.S. government violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. So what that means is that they should have been informed of the fact that this plea deal was being offered and that he wasn't going to be subject to federal.
And that's another thing too. My bad for keep stopping. I gotta explain this. That is protocol and typical with any plea deal you sign. Like if you got a victim, if you locked up for murder, right? Talk about Young Dolph, Hernandez Govain. Young Dolph family rejected the plea that they was ready to give Hernandez Govain. Whenever you charge in a crime that has victims, protocol, standard protocol, is for the state or the United States government, before they offer this plea, they want to confirm with the family that it's okay that we do this. Now in this situation, they didn't get the okay from the victims. They did it anyway. And they violated the law. But this is the federal government that people praise, and they was allowed to get away with it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, y'all. You know, we ain't too many other pages gonna break it down like this.
Act. So what that means is that they should have been informed of the fact that this plea deal was being offered and that he wasn't going to be subject to federal jurisdiction, that his case was being moved to state court and a much lesser penalty being imposed.
What's up, Lee?
You know, as a defense attorney, I do know oftentimes that the government or local district attorney's offices don't consult with their...
There's nobody that we know of in modern history that's on a level of Jeffrey Epstein. Not Diddy, not Harvey Weinstein, not nobody that I can think of off the top of my head. Like, yo, Jeffrey Epstein is in a league of his own. What Jeffrey Epstein was accused of doing is in a league of its own. Yo, we talking about thousands of victims. In the paperwork, they scream about murder. Do we gotta go back to the press conference?
Or they don't actually do what they wish that their result would be. So they do their own thing and they kind of go rogue in making a decision without actually considering what the victims wanted. Here, we know that one of the named victims wanted a criminal prosecution. She wasn't interested in the money. She was more interested in seeing him face much harsher consequences.
So why do they do that? Sorry to interrupt, but why would you do that if you're supposed to? I understand that the district attorney.
The mystery.
Yeah, the district attorney is certainly supposed to weigh a bunch of different factors, including whether or not they can get a conviction. But when you're dealing with the victims and it's not about the money and they really want to see somebody face a jury, why would you not even take that into account and go rogue, as you say?
You know, I think that the time that this happened, 2007, 2008, is very different.
Yeah, it's a simple answer. There's protecting the elites. The federal government is not the end-all, be-all. Money is. Money rules the world. And there's people in this world that have enough money to influence the federal government. Now, they don't want you to believe that. They want you to believe federal government is non-biased. And, you know, it's non-biased, and their sole purpose is justice. But it's not. We saying that now with Trump and how he moving. That's why they saying things like, if we don't win the primaries, I'm going to get impeached, or a lot of us is going to go to jail, because they're weaponizing the federal government just like previous administrations have done as well. But they want to paint this narrative and sell you this lie that, yo, the federal government we're not biased. You know, we treat everybody the same. But no, yo, it's people that got money, influence, that overrides the federal government, that can make the federal government move, That's how you get a prosecution of Diddy. If you want to talk about Diddy. That's why Diddy was prosecuted. Because it was people that had money, that had influence, that pressed the button and say, yo, since you want to play with us, Diddy, we got something for you. That's the only connection that Diddy got to this situation.
Different than today. You also have very young victims. So I think that the government probably thought that they were doing them a favor in the sense that they weren't going to have to face.
That's a lie. That's a lie. You see, yo, that's why we don't run with that narrative. We just get the information from her. She just blatantly lied. She know good and goddamn well. As a defense attorney, she knows that that's not true. But since she's, you can't say too much. This is her response to that question. Let's go back to the question.
Face a jury. Why would you not even take that into account and go rogue, as you say?
I think that the time that this happened, 2007, 2008, is very different than today. You also have very young victims. So I think that the government probably thought that they were doing them a favor in the sense that they weren't going to have to face their accuser. They knew that Jeffrey Epstein would continue to proceed, that he probably would want a trial because he wasn't going to accept harsh consequences. So I don't think that that's what we have to focus our examination on. I think the fact that he was released from jail 6 out of the 7 days of the week and was allegedly continuing to commit these sex acts is what we should look into and find out how that can happen under law enforcement's eye.
Deborah Blum, thank you very much.
Now look, y'all, we talking about a situation where murders possibly took place. Murders, man. These people was able to get away with not only trafficking children, but possibly murder as well. Well, let's go back a couple of days. And the reason I say that is because when they did the press conference announcing that they was releasing these documents, they spoke about murder. Let's go back to that press conference. Shit. Jeffrey Epstein press conference release files. Who's this person? Right here. Y'all remember this press conference? Only 11,000 people
images
saying this?
related to the investigations and prosecutions.
How many people saying this? 11,000 people? Only 11,000 people watch this? That's crazy.
And images related to the investigations and prosecutions.
Must not being promoted on YouTube. You'd have thought 5 million people watch this shit.
In the Department of Justice to produce all documents, files, records, videos, and images related to the investigations and prosecutions of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm here today to talk about the department's compliance with its production obligations under the Act. Around, I think right now, and continuing throughout the day-to-day, as the indexing and uploading completes, we are producing responsive materials under the Act. We are also releasing today a letter we are transmitting to Congress and various internal protocols associated with our review. I want to take a moment to thank the professionals at the Department of Justice who met twice daily, sometimes more, for the last 75 days to get to where we are today. The leadership teams from the Office of the Attorney General, from the Deputy Attorney General's office, the Associate Attorney General's office, the Criminal Division, the National Security Division, the FBI, the Southern District of Florida, the Southern District of New York, and the Northern District of New York all gave up many hours every single day
just not promoted.
On top of their other, of course, full-time obligations to fulfill the President Trump's promise of transparency to the American people. I also want to thank the more than 500 lawyers and professionals across all those divisions that I just mentioned and others
who worked long days, nights, weekends, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's
9%.
Day, nights, weekends, and holidays to complete this production. These highly trained reviewers spend their careers putting bad guys in jail and effectuating the mission of the department. And to a person, they work tirelessly to protect victims and comply with the act since its passage. So thank you to all of them.
I'm ready to speed this up, y'all.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. The 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. They include large quantities of commercial pornography and images that were seized from Epstein's devices, but which he did not take or that someone around him did not take. Some of the videos, though, and some of the images.
Yo, come on, yo. Why are they trying to protect this man even after his so-called death? So y'all got videos that he didn't take or nobody else around him took. But listen to what he ready to say next.
Do appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or by others. Or
come on, bro. So what the fuck did you say what you said in the first place? Like he double talking. Yo, all of these, yo, I ain't gonna say all of them, but yo, but a large percentage of these government officials and real leaders was a part of this Epstein stuff. Like he just double talked. Listen to him again. I know Kyle stopped it. Listen to him again.
Taken by Mr. Epstein or in compliance with the act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. The 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. They include large quantities of commercial pornography and images that were seized from Epstein's devices, but which he did not take or that someone around him did not take. Some of the videos, though, and some of the images do appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or by others or around him. Now, I want to talk for a few minutes about the department's document identification and review protocols. It consisted of multiple layers of review and quality control designed to ensure compliance under the act and protect victims. On top of the review protocols that the department had in place, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York employed an additional review protocol to ensure compliance with a court order requiring United States Attorney Jay Clayton to certify that with respect to certain materials, a large quantity of the materials, a rigorous process was undertaken to protect victims against any clearly unwarranted invasion of their personal privacy. The department's collection effort resulted in more than 6 million pages being identified as potentially responsive, including department and FBI emails, interview summaries, images, videos, and various other materials collected and generated during the various investigations and prosecutions that the act covered. We erred on the side of over-collection of materials from various sources to best ensure maximum transparency and compliance, which necessarily means that the number of responsive pages is significantly smaller than the total number of pages initially collected. That's why I mentioned a moment ago, we're releasing more than 3 million pages today and not the 6 million pages that we collected. I want to address what we didn't produce. The categories of documents withheld include those permitted under the Act to be withheld. Files that contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files and similar files.
Because America don't care about victims. Only when it's beneficial. Only when it's beneficial to their narrative that they care about victims. But overall, America don't care about victims, man. They don't. I'm saying it time and time again. It's obvious. Whenever you talk about children being trafficked and assaulted, and you allow a man to sign a deal that states that nobody will ever be charged for their crimes, yo, that's crazy, man. It's crazy. But yet, but this is what we do though. But yet we got things like this going on where, hold on. 15-year-old Baltimore kid sentenced to life for running over a police officer in Baltimore County. You got things like this going on. Hold on. Well, Baltimore County officer killed after being ran over. Hold on. This what they want you to care about. This what they want you to, you know, shed a tear for. This is okay, right here. You know, this is okay to. God dang, hold up. Seven years ago. This cop name was. Shit. The hell? Oh, the Clintons. Damn, I'm messing up, yo. God damn. The Clintons testified in front of Congress today. Oh, we gotta check out Don Lemon interview too. Hold on. Yeah, we gotta check that out. Hold on. Let me show y'all. Now this is a 15-year-old kid, man. They gave Shorty life in prison. They gave that boy life in prison at 15 years old. Hold on, man. Let me find out what Shorty's name is. Baltimore County police officer ran over by robbery suspect. CHARGED.HERE'S. How do you spell that shit? Devontae.
Officer Amy Caprio was killed in May of 2018 while responding to a burglary call in Baltimore County. This past May, 17-year-old Dante Harris was found guilty in Caprio's murder. He was sentenced just moments ago. WJ's investigator Mike Helgren is live outside Circuit Court in Towson with the very latest. Mike.
Tim, he got a life sentence. His attorneys plan to appeal. That life sentence was for the felony murder. He also got 20 years for burglary, another 5 years for theft. He was inside of a stolen Jeep, and jurors got to see very graphic body-worn camera video from Officer Amy Caprio that day. She was responding to some suspicious people and possibly burglary in the area, and she encountered Dante Harris. He wouldn't get out of the vehicle, and he said he didn't realize what he was doing. He ended up flooring that vehicle, running her.
This 15-year-old, he deserved life for this shit. 15-year-old, he was crying in an interrogation room. He deserved life in prison. Took his whole life away at 15 for the crimes he committed.
Over. Prosecutor said that this was intentional, that he knew exactly what he was doing and showed no remorse. Now, Dante Harris was 16 years old at the time this happened. He did not speak at the sentencing today. Instead, his lawyer read a 3-page handwritten letter. He says he wished this day had never happened. If he could go back and do it differently, he would. He said that he didn't want to hurt her, that this was a life or death situation. Now, we also heard today from the mother of Amy Caprio, who said that if she thinks negatively about this, she'll fall into a deep pit of despair. She chooses to remember Amy's life in a positive way. We also heard from Amy Caprio's husband. He said his life has been shattered by this. When that life sentence came down, there were tears in the courtroom from Dante Harris's mother. She just screamed out and cried. She did not speak as well, but she offered her prayers to the Caprio family. Just an emotional day all the way around. Now, defense attorneys had asked for 30 years or no more than 30 years, which they believe is going to be given to the other 3 defendants in this case who reached a plea deal with the government. They have yet to be sentenced. But again, more to come on this because there is an appeal sentencing for them. The bottom line here today, though, a life sentence for Dante Harris, who is 17 years old. He'll likely serve that at the Patuxent Institution in a youthful offenders program.
So, life sentence for Shorty. Was 16 years old when he committed this crime. But yet you got grown ass adults that committed crimes just as bad, maybe even worse.
Files the disclosure of
no
which
charges
would constitute
filed.
a clearly unwarranted.
No charges are filed. But we supposed to demonize the 15-year-old and give these people a pass. Man, get the fuck out of here, man. America don't care about victims, man. Like I said, only when it's beneficial. Only when it's beneficial.
Invasion of personal privacy. Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced. Although the act allows for withholding for items necessary.
Anything involving death, y'all. People died, y'all. They got images of people dying. No charges filed. Because of this deal that the federal government allowed him to sign. And I'm pretty sure they knew this information when they allowed him to sign that deal, man.
To keep secret in the interest of national security or foreign policy, no files are being withheld or redacted on that basis. Further, as we previously stated in our December 19th letter of last year, the department withheld or redacted files covered by various privileges, as we always do, including deliberative process privilege, work product privilege, and attorney-client privilege. As you all know, under the Act, the department must subsequently submit to the House and Senate committees on the judiciary a report listing all categories of records released and withheld, a summary of redactions made, including the legal basis for such redactions, and a list of all government officials and politically exposed persons named or referenced in the Act. We will do so in due course as required under the Act. I want to talk for just a moment about the redactions that will be obvious to anyone who reviews the materials that we just produced today. In addition to the documentary redactions, which includes personal identifying information, victim information, and other privileges, there is extensive redactions to images.
Look at the things that they doing. So they doing certain redactions to trick the people. They're doing certain redactions to confuse the people as to what's really going on. I ain't even save it. God damn it. But it was a redacted image of fuck is the White Iverson dude name? Whatever his name was. You know, the guy that did the song White Iverson. And these women, these girls look like they was of age. But they redacted them, you know, just to create a so people can be confused as to what's really going on. And why certain people are being redacted versus people that's not being redacted.
And videos. To protect victims, we redacted every woman depicted in any image or video with the exception of Ms. Maxwell. We did not redact images of any men. unless it was impossible to redact the woman without also redacting the man. To this end, though, and to ensure transparency, if any member of Congress wishes to review any portions of the responsive production in any unredacted form, they're welcome to make arrangements with the department to do so, and we're happy to do that. I want to talk for a minute about something that is important. Every single day of the year, the Department of Justice investigates and prosecutes those who abuse and traffic young women and children. Just last year, the FBI located over 2,700 victims of child exploitation. The Department of Justice found and terminated 3.8 million dark web pedophile accounts. In August, we charged 11 defendants for extensive sex trafficking in Los Angeles of illegal immigrants and underage women. Last month, we charged 5 men who were engaged in a sadistic sextortion network of deranged young men abusing women. Over the past several months, last summer and into the fall, we executed Operation Restore Justice, rescuing 205 child victims and arresting 293 offenders. I point this out because I take umbrage at the suggestion, which is totally false, that the Attorney General or this department does not take child exploitation or sex trafficking seriously, or that we somehow do not want to protect victims. We do. There are some select members of Congress and some in the public eye, including those most critical of our efforts at full transparency under the Act, who remain silent as to all the work that we have done and continue to do every day in this space, while quickly pointing a finger at the Attorney General or this department because we were careful in our review of millions of pages of documents over the past 2 months. The Attorney General, the Director of the FBI, and our partners throughout this administration work hard every single day to protect the most vulnerable among us. With the production of this magnitude, mistakes are inevitable. We, of course, want to immediately correct any redaction errors that our team may have made, and so the department has established an email inbox for victims to reach us directly to correct redactions and any concerns when appropriate. That's been in existence since December, and we've been doing that since then. Finally, a very small portion of the documents collected pursuant to the Act include materials that a law firm produced to the SDNY in 2019 pursuant to a grand jury subpoena. This was during the criminal investigation of Ms. Maxwell. We determined it would be prudent to seek an order from the court in the Southern District of New York seeking production of these materials subject to the protective order in that civil lawsuit. To that end, the department has filed that motion with the appropriate judge in the SDNY, and if that motion is granted, we'll release those materials with appropriate redactions immediately. Today's release marks the end of a very comprehensive document identification and review process to ensure transparency to the American people and compliance with the Act. The department has engaged in an unprecedented and extensive effort to do so. After submitting the final report to Congress as required under the Act and publishing the written justifications for redactions in the Federal Register, the department's obligations under the Act will be completed. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has about that.
Todd, I'd like to ask you about this, and I have a Minnesota question for you. On the Epstein release today, it was recently made public that Ghislaine Maxwell claims more than 24 men signed secret agreements with the federal government not to be prosecuted. What is your reaction to that, and what does that mean for her case?
I read an article that described, I wasn't aware that it was actual men that she's claiming. I thought it was accomplices, which I'm not sure if that's a reference to some of the financial institutions or other individuals that
25.
So yes, I don't have a reaction to her filing. I can tell you that we reviewed, as I just described, every single piece of paper that we have associated with these investigations, Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and And to the extent that such arrangements exist, I'm not aware of them.
On to Minnesota, if I may ask you real quick, that's in the topic, in the headlines right now. There's new video of a man believed to be Alex Preddy, who's spitting, who's kicking out a taillight of a law enforcement vehicle. Does that change the perception of a potential DOJ investigation? Is there going to be a civil rights investigation into his death? Where does that land now that that video's out? Then I have a quick follow-up on that.
I don't think a single video should change any perception the Department of Justice may or may not have about that tragic occurrence last Saturday. We've said repeatedly over the past week that, of course, this is something that we're investigating, and we are. That's what we would always do in circumstances like this. And so there's an investigation that's ongoing, which I'm not going to talk about. But just look, the problem is an initial reaction to a particular video, one or another. You're talking about one that happened apparently some days ahead of last Saturday. It's an investigation. So an investigation necessarily means just that. It means talking to witnesses. It means looking at documentary evidence, sending subpoenas if you have to. And the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has the best experts in the world at this. They've been doing it for decades, and so I expect that investigation will proceed with those parameters in mind.
Are you looking at a nexus of left-wing groups? This DOJ said that that's something that you guys were concerned about. Are you following money? Are you looking at a potential that all of this may be related somewhere?
I mean, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Attorney General. You said in your remarks that you've withheld some documents because of ongoing investigations. I've done this long enough to know you can't comment on ongoing investigations, but can you say a little bit more? Because as you know, the department has been criticized for not bringing charges against more people. Are there still open investigations related to Jeffrey Epstein?
So what I was laying out in my comments is the statutory, what the statute talks about what we can withhold and the reasons we can withhold it. I wasn't pointing to any particular, I wasn't trying to be coy or otherwise suggest there's some investigation. As you all know, Jay Clayton in New York is in charge of any potential investigations, and I'm not going to comment beyond that on that.
You were referring to Clayton.
Excuse me?
You were referring to Clayton's investigation.
I wasn't referring to anything. I was just saying that Congress, in their wisdom, allowed us to withhold documents if there were ongoing criminal investigations. That's one of the 4 reasons. I wanted to make clear with respect to any national security information that we were not withholding. There's not some tranche of super secret documents about Jeffrey Epstein that we're withholding. We're actually not withholding anything based upon NDI.
Deputy Attorney General Prince, thank you for your time. 2 questions for you. Number 1, pushing politics aside and everyone else aside, some of the victims of Epstein have expressed frustration with the entire process. I want to give you the opportunity to speak directly to them.
Well, I don't know what you're speaking to. I mean, if there's frustration with, quote, the entire process, same here. I mean, you have a situation where for many, many years, nobody even breathed a word about Jeffrey Epstein. And then all of a sudden, it was all anybody would talk about going into the last spring and summer, culminating in the passage of the Transparency Act. And President Trump has said for years what I think everybody will find to be exactly true, which is detailing his relationship and lack thereof with Mr. Epstein and what he thought about Mr. Epstein. And notwithstanding what the department has been saying for a very long time, we're still where we are today. Listen, victims of Mr. Epstein have gone through unspeakable pain, and there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months hopefully is able to bring closure. I think that what we told our reviewers is that was the goal. You know, there's this mantra out there that, the Department of Justice is supposed to protect Donald J. Trump, and that's what we were telling. That's not true. That was never the case. We are always concerned about the victims. When we said that we were not legally allowed to release documents, that's a fact. That was true. It remains true today. And then with the Act's passage, we are able now and directed to release documents, which is what we are doing. But so hopefully some of those frustrations are now eased. Listen, any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so. Hopefully, if not, they should. The prosecutors from this case in New York have given hundreds, if not thousands, of hours to working with victims, and that's what we do every day, and that's what we did in this case as well. So
very quickly, can you assure the American public that President Trump, like every other prominent person whose name came up in relation to the Epstein files, that all documents, photos, and anything relevant to him connected to the case are being released?
I mean, yes, I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the Act, and there is no we did not protect President Trump. We didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents. And there's nothing I can do about that. But President Trump, of all the people in Washington, D.C. and around this country that have said for years the same consistent message about Jeffrey Epstein is President Trump. And so there's not been a change of course or anything, and certainly his direction to the American people and the his direction to the Department of Justice was to be as transparent, release the files, be as transparent as we can, and that's exactly what we did.
I want to clarify your remarks on the Alex Truddy killing. Are you saying that the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into his death?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, and I know there's been a lot of discussion among the media around that, but just think about what that means. All that means is that DHS, as the Secretary has said, is conducting an investigation, as they should and as they do every time there's a tragic event like this. And the FBI, in their role, which is a separate role from DHS, is also looking into it and conducting an investigation. And that's not. That shouldn't be treated as making news. It's just we've said that for a week, and it remains as true today as it was last Sunday when I said it.
Two questions for you, one on topic and one separate. Yeah, two questions for you, one on topic and one separate. On topic, do you have any information that you could just share? Because 3 million documents is a lot for people who are watching this at home. Are there any new names or new people, public people in positions of power who you're found in these filings?
I don't have anything to share about what's new or not new, and no, I don't have anything to share about that.
And to follow up on that, do you have a reaction to the arrest of Don Lemon overnight?
Do you have a reaction to what?
To Don Lemon's arrest overnight?
Speaking of Don Lemon.
Reaction to it?
Don Lemon did an interview. You know, because we've been on Dead Hills too. And then we're going to get to Durk and all the rest of the stuff. Don Lemon. Don Lemon is trying to make it seem like he wasn't a part of the play. Don Lemon is then associated himself to either Black Lives Matter.
Our first guest tonight is a longtime team.
Or Antifa. He's not innocent in this. The video that got released shows that Don Lemon was a part of that protest. Not just serving as an independent journalist. He was leading the protest. He helped facilitate, plan. He helped all of that. But mainstream media wants to paint this narrative that this is an attack on free speech. No, it ain't. It's attack on motherfucking Don Lemon for participating in protests.
TV and digital newsman who on Thursday night was arrested for
for committing journalism, which is a very serious crime under our current administration. Joining us now to share all the incredible details, please welcome Don Lemon. Thank you for being here. I hope you're okay. I hope you're mentally okay after what happened to you. How are you? Okay?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No, that's a really that's an honest answer. I don't know. I mean, I'm okay. Oh.
Now, in a live we did a couple days ago, we went through the video, we went through the protests, and Don Lemon wasn't just there reporting. But that's the narrative that mainstream media wants to paint to the public, because nobody wants an attack on journalism. So if I can convince you that the arrest of Don Lemon was an attack on journalism, I can convince you that Donald Trump, who's, the right, is bad. And you need to vote for the left in order to get... This is all politics. You need to vote for the left in order to get the right out of office. But this ain't that. Not this. Donald Trump was a part of the protest. I mean, not Donald Trump. Don Lemon was a part of the protest. Don Lemon connected itself to these antagonistic groups. And Don Lemon went to jail for it. That's what happened. Nothing more, nothing less.
Well, but I'm not going to let them steal my joy. But this is very serious. I mean, these are federal criminal charges.
Yeah, and time in prison can change a man, even if it's just one night.
Yeah, not yet. Don't get ahead of yourself, Jimmy. It's not prison yet.
So for anyone who doesn't know, you are not a favorite of Donald Trump's. No. Going back to your days at CNN. No. You're not on his top 10 list.
But he says he doesn't know me. He says, I don't know who he is.
He doesn't know who you are, but he doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Okay? And on January 18th, is that correct? You were covering a protest at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, an anti-ICE protest. Apparently there's a pastor at the church who's also a local ICE official, which is, I think, just as Jesus would want. And I believe we have some B-roll. Protesters interrupted the Sunday service, and you followed them in. You interviewed various people in the church, and afterward,
when it comes down to Trump, a lot of people just get look, I'm not really a fan of Trump right now, to be honest. I think Trump was a part of the Epstein files. I don't think the same Donald Trump that we got in the last his last term. I don't think the Donald Trump that we got in the last term is the same Donald Trump we get in this term. I think this Donald Trump is heavily controlled and manipulated. I think he got controlled by those assassination attempts on his life. We don't know who they was placed by, but I think that was the way they, a form of control. They say no matter how big you is, you ain't bigger than the program. But when it comes down to people not liking Donald Trump, I think it's just media. A large percentage of the media is ran by the, left, right. It's ran by the left. And they do a great job of painting Donald Trump as a racist, as a bigot, as a danger to America. And if you ask me, even if you take the Epstein shit out of it, I would much rather vote Donald Trump over Kamala, even still right now today. You feel me? But that's really what it is, man. Media is the reason that people don't like Donald Trump. It's a serious media campaign against him. And when it comes down to ICE and what's going on with ICE, they want to make it seem like, that Donald Trump is being aggressive when it comes down to, to immigration and, he's separating families and doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. But it's not. The aggression comes from the resistance. And the resistance is being placed by the Democrats. At the end of the day, illegal immigrants, they gotta go. They gotta go. They was really here to replace the black vote. If you notice, let me show y'all. So you can understand what I'm saying. Then we're gonna get back to Don Lemon. Some Democrats want voters to not be able to have ID. Look at this. It lets you know
the voter ID debate.
What this really was about. Yo, they are actively fighting, y'all, to have no voter ID, which means, if you take it back to the illegals, a lot of them will be able to vote, and they're not even American citizens. This whole thing about illegal immigration, yo, was about voters. It was about getting the Democrats back in office, because a large percentage of the black community turned their back on the Democrats. Not even that they sided with Republicans, they just ain't voting. Because the Democrats have lied to the black community for decades now. Decades. These immigrants, like right, PNR, they was sitting over here to replace the black vote. That's why the Democrats are fighting so hard for them to stay, and the Republicans want them to leave. It's all political game, man. And the resistance comes from the antagonists that was sit there, and ISIS sit there to fight the antagonists, as well as immigration.
As we've seen, the issue of election security integrity isn't going anywhere. The latest plan from Republicans seeks to set a federal standard aimed at ensuring only eligible individuals cast ballots. The Democrats have tried to fight such attempts in the past though a majority of states now have voter ID laws on their books. So to continue the discussion, let's bring in News Nation contributor and author of the So What Substack, Crystal Liza. Thank you very much for joining me. Good to see you. So I'll ask you the same question I asked the senator. This is an issue that more than 75% of the country agrees on. Republicans, Democrats, people from all different demographic backgrounds. Why is it that Democrats like Chuck Schumer are so out of touch with not just the country, but their own party?
Yeah, I'll one-up you. The last poll I saw was a Pew poll last summer, and it was 84% approval. You know, Donald Trump always talks about 80-20 issues. This really is an 80-20 issue. So the argument from Democrats has long been it's a slippery slope, right? That if you do this, then there will be further ballot restrictions, that they cite some data. The data is very mixed on this, but they cite some data that suggested voter ID impacts minorities who are registered who can vote, but they're worried about voting. Look, you point out, and I always say to people, in 36 states in this country, you are required to show some form of identification. 24 of those, it's a photo identification. 12, it's just something with your name on it. I would think we could move in that direction. I think this is caught up in politics. Look, there are actually a lot of 80-20 issues in this country that we don't move on because the sort of political will to exist. And I think that's why you see people not happy with how government works, because government doesn't listen to them.
Well, there was a ton of so-called controversy after Georgia passed their law in 2022 with all those same arguments that it will disenfranchise minority voters, it makes it harder to vote, and actually voting numbers.
They throw minorities in there as a ploy. It's really about the illegal immigrants. They want these illegal immigrants to be able to vote. That's how they can pay them back. You know, we allowed y'all into this country illegally. You vote for us, keep us in office, and that's what this is about, y'all. So when you got black people jumping out the window for ICE, and it's like, yo, you know they was really sent here. I mean, not ICE, but immigrants. It's like, yo, you know they really sent here to take. That's why they gave them so much. They was sent here to take our vote. You know, to substitute as a substitution. You know what I mean? That's why you think they gave them so much? Free housing, health care, food stamps, money benefits. That was a way to like, all right, you know, we got y'all. You come over here, you vote for us, we give you this. Now Trump got in office and he pulling it all back. And the Democrats, because at the end of the day, y'all, this is like the Democrats' last ditch effort. Like, yo, with the policies that they got, you know, with the things that they stand on, yeah, I don't ever see them getting back in office. For real, like with the trans and the gay movement and yo, it's gonna be so hard for them to get back in office, yo, and that's where this fight is coming from. That's why they're using immigration as a way to say, look at the Republicans, look at Donald Trump, vote for us, free rights for all. It's politics, and politics is deceitful. And the people that's falling victim to it, the people that's getting emotional about it, is falling right into the hands of the play. They're falling right into the hands of it. That's why I can sit there and say, I don't give a fuck what's going on with ICE. I don't care about what they're doing. Because it doesn't affect me. I'm an American citizen. A lot of black Americans we are American citizens. These same people that they want us to fight for didn't fight for us. And if they did fight for us, that shit was 150 years ago. They ain't fighting for us now. We've been going through it since the dust of dawn over this bitch. The fight ain't never stopped. But now, they want us to stop our fight to join their fight. But they never really joined ours. And we ain't doing that, y'all. And at the end of the day, it don't serve us any benefit to help them do anything. Because they was here to replace us. You understand? So it's like, for the people that's pushing this, and that's why these are the people right here that I focus on. People like her. Her right here.
We don't mess with Nikki.
You don't mess with Nikki?
No, we don't mess with Nikki.
Did you used to mess with her?
Oh, of course. I mean, you had to, but I will be clear, I have always loved Cardi more.
Okay.
And clearly my instincts were right to love on Cardi more than Nikki.
Totally. So you kind of flipped on her. What was the moment you decided that I just can't anymore?
I just don't do sellouts, especially in this moment, right? Like, things are too serious. There are too many.
But she's a sellout. She's a sellout. She's portraying an image. She act like she's a part of the culture. You know, she talk real slick. You know, you would think she's a typical black woman. You know, that's her role in government. But there's videos where she's talking proper as a motherfucker, like she's college educated. Has zero identification with the struggle. I'd rather focus on these people because these people are able to blend in, gather support. Meanwhile, their whole agenda is something totally opposite of what benefits black people.
People that are being harmed, and especially with her being an immigrant, then deciding to go and cozy up to this administration that is specifically putting targets on the backs of immigrants and anyone who stands with them, even if they're U.S. citizens, they can catch a bullet. That is wrong, and I don't even understand how you can play with it and pretend like it's anything but wrong.
Why do you think she's doing it then?
Listen, I don't know if it's because she looking for some papers for some people, or if she's looking for them other papers, because, you know, I hear that she got family members that's got a little, you know, a few little issues, right? And so maybe she needs them other papers, because we don't mess with Nikki.
You don't mess with Nikki?
No, we don't mess with Nikki.
Who's we? And why is she speaking for everybody? You get what I'm saying? Why she don't say, I don't mess with Nikki? You can't speak for everybody, Jasmine. Know what Jasmine should have spoke on that she was quiet about? Jasmine Crockett is a spokesperson for Texas. You know, that's her jurisdiction. Texas. Carmelo Anthony, the black kid who shot the white kid over a seat when they was at the track meet. Carmelo Anthony got ran all through the media, called him a murderer. He deserved life in prison. He killed this boy unjustly. If Jasmine Crockett ain't say a word. Still yet today. The murder to me looked like it was justified. His life, he felt like his life was in danger. You talking about a kid that's 6'4", he 5'8", 5'10", however tall he was. You got him and his brother pressing you over a seat. He stabbed him, killed him. Jasmine Crockett ain't said a goddamn thing. But she pro-black though. Carmelo Anthony was crucified. They didn't want him to go to they didn't even want him to graduate. It was protests, all by white people. Jasmine Crockett ain't say nothing. Yo, we gotta pay attention to what's really going on, man. But yet, she gun-ho for immigration. This is why, a prime example, why I will focus on her over anybody. Yo, watch out for people like her. Yo, she a snake. You can't trust her. She's lying. She's two-faced. You don't know what her real motive is. But she'll get on here and say, yo, we don't fuck with Nikki. She a sellout. She chose the Republican Party. But when something happened in your jurisdiction that involved a black kid, to, in my opinion, being unjustly criminalized, you said nothing. Still, today, have said nothing. Man, fuck out of here, Jasmine Crockett. We ain't fucking with you, man. I don't know.
Those out, usually at a cost, right? But going after people like Don Lemon, who I love dearly, just wrong. Like, she's just on the wrong side of history. So I hope that people remember all of this when she comes back and she's broke and she's begging for money and support, because something tells me MAGA ain't gonna do it for her.
Like, if Nikki came out with, like, you know, a summer jam and you couldn't not bop your head to it, do you think you'd still have to turn it off when you're in the car to come on the radio? Or, like, can you divorce those two things?
I think that there are plenty of people. I'll give you an example. R. Kelly, right? A lot of people took issue with R. Kelly. R. Kelly obviously is serving and doing his time right now. But something tells me that people are still bumping R. Kelly somewhere, somehow, right? I think that there are people that can divorce the art. For me, it is more so about, like, your dollars. Like, are you going to support with your dollars certain things? Because it's the dollars that have given her a platform in the first place. Otherwise, Donald Trump wouldn't even know who she was. No one would know who she was. He let her hand those out.
Now he's trying to affect the money. The same thing Nicki Minaj said that they was doing. They coming after her money, man. Oh shit, wrong video. We ready to get to Dirk next, y'all. Cause we pretty much sum this up.
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with
Well, you were arrested. Now, first I want to ask you, is there a difference between whether those protesters had the right to go into a church and whether a credentialed journalist like yourself had the right to go in and cover them going into the church?
Well, listen, obviously I'm in the middle of this. I can't say a lot. There's a lot that I cannot say. But what I will say is that I'm not a protester. I went there to be a journalist. I went there to chronicle and document and record what was happening. I was following that one group around. And so that's what I did. I reported on them. And so, but I do think that there is a difference between a protester and a journalist.
So the next day, Trump reposts something from someone saying that you should be arrested. You should be sentenced in prison for violating the FACE Act. And at this point, are you thinking, oh, I might get arrested?
Well, not until they started, the drip of people starting to talk about it. I think Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi and all those folks talked about it. And here's the interesting thing, though, is that after that, I retained an attorney. Mm-hmm. And the attorney reached out to them and said, basically, I understand that you have an interest because your folks have been talking about it. And so if you are serious about this, then let's do it the right way. He's perfectly willing to self-report it, which means turn yourself in. And so we don't have to go through this whole rigmarole, and never heard back from them.
That is customary in a situation like this, that
someone would be allowed to turn themselves in.
Yeah, people who are accused of much worse things than I am accused of doing is they are allowed the courtesy. I mean, Donald Trump was allowed the courtesy to turn himself in when he was.
That's right.
He did. Yeah.
And so then the DOJ goes around and tries to find, and correct me if I have any of this wrong, some judges to charge you, and the judges say, no, we're not going to do that.
I think it was 2 different judges and an appeals court. I think so. It was 3 altogether.
And then they find a grand jury.
Right.
And do you know, are you familiar with how that happens? Like, how do they find this group of people who are willing to bring charges against you?
I don't know. I'm not that, astute with it, but at least I don't know the process that well because I'm not an attorney. But, I assume that they figure out who the folks are and they send it to them. And then they write up the indictment as to what they are, what they want charged. And then they give it to them. But you can write whatever you want to in an indictment. As I've been doing some research, you can say whatever you want. And for, even if you lie about it, prosecutors can pretty much say what they want with impunity, and they don't face any sort of consequences.
The activists who went into the church were arrested, and you were arrested. Georgia Fort, who's a local journalist in Minnesota, was also arrested along with you. And how is she doing? I assume you're in close touch with her?
I'm not in contact with her.
You're not?
I cannot be at this point.
Okay. You cannot be? Oh, interesting. Right. Okay. So take us through what happened. It was Thursday night when they came to get you, right? Okay.
When they got me.
You're here in LA.
When the popo came.
Yeah.
You gotta laugh at something, right? But it's very serious. I had gone to, I was here to cover the Grammys. I was going to do the red carpet. And I had gone to the Black Music Collective event that night, where the importance of Black music and artists and whatever. And the reason I cover it is because of the First Amendment, the freedom of expression, and the art of music is part of that. And then I'd gone to the Spotify party, and it's all young people, and they're like, Mr. Lemon, oh my God, I love watching you on TikTok. And I'm like, wow, that's different than my grandma loves watching you on CNN, so it's a whole new art. And I got back to the hotel. I walked in, I had my swag bag from the thing, and I was walking up to the room, and I pressed the elevator button, and all of a sudden I feel myself being jostled, and
I don't think
people trying to grab.
I don't think he was actually fired from CNN. I think this is a way to expand their viewership. While playing like he independent. It's a way to further their agenda, further their cause. And I think that's been going on with the left and the right. Tucker Carlson and they're still pushing the same narrative, but they're able to be more radical because they're not associated to these billion-dollar companies or corporations. You see how he mentioned what he said? People say, I see you on TikTok. I think that's why they did that. We need to expand. We need to get our message out. Everybody don't watch CNN. So we need to have our CNN news anchors on YouTube. Blogging, presenting themselves as independent. That's what's going on, man.
Me and put me in handcuffs, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "We came to arrest you." And I said, "Who are you?"
He was on some bullshit, Garley, man.
They identified themselves, and I said, "If you are who you are."
No, it was a crime, Garley, man. This is a crime. Listen to him. Hold on, let's go back. This the part they don't be showing people. What he did was criminal. He interrupted a church proceeding. And he wasn't just a journalist. He was protesting. Listen to him. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. How many days ago was that, y'all? All right, here we go. Listen to him. That's not it. Listen to him. He protested, man. Look, I'm ready to show it to you. He wasn't just no journalist. Listen to him.
Hey, last one down buys the Ultras. Run.
I don't believe he got fired.
Disgraced ex-CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested early network, storming into the city's church field office director, wreaked havoc. Lemon spoke with the congregation's lead pastor, Jonathan. Laws specifically for interfering with Christian worshipers, according to a post on X. Harmeet Dillon, the justice.
This ain't the video. Here you go, right here. Listen to him. He protesting, yo. And you can tell it's his voice. This is him. He's protesting. Just like the rest of the protesters. He might did interviews too. He's protesting, man. He protesting. He wasn't just there reporting. And he knew what he was doing was illegal. He knew he was breaking the law when he did it. See, yo, Golly, man, you gotta realize what's going on. Yo, they trying to put more mainstream people on social media. I say it was protesting, but you can't interfere with the church. That's against the law. You can't interfere with somebody in the middle of worship. I didn't know that was a law. That was a law. You can't do that. He broke a law, a federal law. He broke a federal law, man. But the reason I said I don't think he was fired, I think they just needed him on YouTube, to spread their messages, because they're trying to turn YouTube, mainstream media is trying to take over YouTube. They don't like me. You understand what I'm saying? They don't like real independent speakers. They want to silence us. So the way you silence us is you bring them onto YouTube. It's the same thing like the rapper podcast. All rappers want podcasts now, and they're getting promoted in the algorithm. They're getting deals. It's because we don't want average people speaking. Then that can be dangerous. You don't know what these people might say. They're not controlled. We need controlled voices. We need controlled voices, man. Especially at the top. That's why I say I don't think he was fired.
Warrant, then where's the warrant? And they didn't have a warrant, so they had to wait for someone from outside, an FBI guy, to come in to show me a warrant on a cell phone. And by that time, I was like trying to, figure out what was going on to get my bearings. They dropped all my stuff. My glasses had fallen on the floor. I'm like, I can't read that. So they had to pick my glasses up, and I read it. And still, what does that mean? So and then it's a bunch of guys, and they outside. FBI guys were out there. I mean, it had to be maybe a dozen people, which is a waste, Jimmy, of resources, because I had told them weeks before, and maybe once or twice, that we would, I think my attorney tried to contact them once, maybe twice, that I could just go in, and it would have to be the folks who were just working there that day, and they wouldn't have to have all these people following me around.
It's more than just a waste of resources. So they grab you and they take you where?
Well, you're right about more than just a waste of resources. They want that. They want to embarrass you. They want to intimidate you. They want to instill fear. And so that's why they did it that way. They took me down to a holding place at the federal courthouse.
And they give you mugshots, strip search, all of that stuff?
No strip search. But mugshot, fingerprints, the whole 9 yards. Twice.
Did they put you in a cell?
I was in a holding room.
You're in a holding room.
Yes.
And how long are you in that holding room?
From about midnight, 12:30 to 1 or so the next day.
Who did you make your one phone call to?
Here's the interesting thing. I didn't have a one phone call. I never had
Isn't
a one
that,
phone
wait a
call.
minute, I watch a lot of TV.
I know. That's right. I asked them, do I get my
call?
one phone call, Jimmy? They said, no, you don't. You get to talk to your attorney whenever the court says that you can. And so that wasn't until the next day. But I tell you how I got it out. I had my Apple Watch on in my phone. And I called my husband. I said, hey, Siri, call Tim.
Crazy.
And he was asleep. Went to his voicemail. And then I said, hey, Siri, call Abby Lowell, who's my attorney, and went to his voicemail. He was traveling back from someplace. And finally, I got into the front of an FBI agent's truck, and they had the handcuffs on me. And my bracelet, I had on a bracelet that my husband bought me for our wedding, which was this diamond bracelet, and it kept getting caught. And it was kind of hurting, and they said they'd take it off. And I said, do you mind taking that up to my husband in room blah, 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 blah. And one of the FBI agents said, sure, and took it up, and that's how my husband found out. Otherwise, no one would have known where I was.
Wow. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Don Lemon.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
Managing with Connecting would be a whole lot easier.
Who's training the new guy?
What do you mean he didn't show up?
We are back with Don Lemon. That is Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, lying to us, using her freedom of speech to lie. And I think it's worth noting
this
that...
is not an attack on freedom of speech, y'all. This is not freedom of speech been attacked, but this is not an attack on journalism. That's not what this is. That's just the narrative that you're trying to paint. It's just an attack on Don Lemon. That's all. For participating in the protest. Excuse me.
Last year, the Trump administration made it legal for ICE agents to enter houses of worship, schools, healthcare facilities, but they're saying that it's not okay for journalists to do the same thing. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
You, while you're in custody overnight, we're talking about being in a holding cell, and what's going through your mind? Like, what are you doing? How do you pass that time?
Well, the entire time it happened, I said I thought it might happen, and my attorney, called them or emailed them and reached out to them and never heard back. But the entire time I was thinking that I'm a journalist, and I just start thinking in my head, how many agents are there? Who am I riding in the truck with? Like, I wanted to keep mental notes of that. I couldn't, obviously I didn't have a phone or anything to write it down. So that's what I was doing, sort of, people count their steps. I just kept chronicling and in my head, what I was doing, what I was seeing, what was happening. Every time I needed to go, because it was a holding room, every time I needed to go to the restroom, I had to knock on the door. They had to come in and get me and then take me to the bathroom and stand there while I was peeing. So yeah, it was
You
bizarre.
mentioned the act of courtity that FBI agent extended to you. Were you treated well?
So not by the guys that arrested me, obviously, but not all federal agents are the same. And the guys who work for Homeland Security and the FBI are not the guys that you see out there.
Rob, crazy mother. He probably
47
was.
days of training who are, violating people's due process rights. They are completely different people. And I have always had a very good relationship with law enforcement, especially federal law enforcement, because I used to do these franchises when I was in local news called, FBI's Most Wanted, right? The Alabama's Most Wanted and New York's Most Wanted.
It's not about.
And so,
it's against the law. It's not about him being a journalist. It's against the law to impede people doing worship. That's a federal law. That's what he's charged with, basically. Being impeding people doing worship is a federal law, and I'm sure he knew that. It's a smart man right here. He's not stupid. He's very well versed on law. He's worked for CNN for 15 years.
These guys were professional. They were courteous, and they were kind, but not the original Homeland Security guys that took me in.
When did you realize
He
that this
thought-
was...
He thought he was going to be able to hide under the umbrella of journalism. But what he did exceeded journalism. screaming, protesting and screaming out, fuck ICE or whatever they were saying at the protest exceeded journalism. He didn't remain neutral. He chose a side. Chose a side. That's how he was able to be charged criminally.
A very, very big story.
I had no idea. I had a little bit of an idea when I asked to use the restroom, and sort of early in the morning. I wasn't sure what time. I didn't have a watch or anything, so I didn't know. And so I go out, and they open the door to the room where the agents, they're housed, or their office, and there was CNN on a monitor. And on the thing I could see, former CNN anchor Don Lemon arrested in Los Angeles. And I said to the guy, I was like, is that, I said, is that happening a lot? He goes, you've been on all morning.
Yeah.
And he says, this is a big deal. But I still didn't know how big a deal it was, Jimmy. I swear to you, I walked out. My attorney said to me on the phone finally when I got out.
That's what they're trying to make them.
I prepared a statement. You can rewrite it and
That's
edit
what they're trying to make them,
but
we ain't
you need to
doing that.
deliver the
We ain't
statement.
allowing that to
Deliver
happen.
who? Like, what are you talking about? They said the people who are waiting outside. And so my husband and I walk out, and I see this, I don't know how many reporters and paparazzi and helicopters. I had no idea.
Yo, so do the guy that he's married to, do he call him his husband too? Or is he the wife? Like, how does that work? How does that dynamic work? Do both of them call their partner their husband? Has you ever heard him speak up? What did he reference? Real talk though. He was Baltimore fake frog. I'm dead serious though. Real talk. Like, I done heard him mention this guy as his husband on several occasions. Like, when he speaks, did he say the same thing? This is a question I just was pondering.
I asked my husband, I said, what happened with the channel today? Because I was concerned about, that's my livelihood.
Rado podcast,
and my viewers. And he said,
make sure y'all tapping the Rado podcast, man.
We have your
subscribe to the
Presley,
channel,
who's an attorney and a friend, and other folks who were filling in for me. And they said every journalist that you know has been calling in and coming on the show, and it's been going for about 9 hours.
You got a lot of support from your fellow journalists.
And I want to thank everybody for all of their support, especially the journalists, especially the people out there. I mean,
so look, right? There's another video I seen that I ain't show y'all yet about his journalistic ventures. Hold on. How many days ago was that? Here we go. Listen to some of these people that was
and largely surrounded him to his front.
Listen to some of these people.
For y'all, before we get into the
this
indictment,
guy name is Chase something. What's his name? Chase E. Salute to Chase E, man. Listen to this whole breakdown.
to go to the press conference that Don Lemon had shortly after he was released.
All right.
As we're going, have you been breaking the law for the last 30 years, Don? We won't get into it. I found a great clip of everything that happened during the situation with Don Lemon. And again, I want you guys to decide what you think about Don Lemon's involvement in this. And as we're going to get into the indictment here in just a second, if the charges are well-founded. Check this out.
Let me do this.
Listen to him.
I can't see anything on that. Okay, I got it. Just part. Just hit part. Twitch, we're back.
Sunday morning church.
Yeah, okay, we'll see. We're after that, after we do this operation, you'll see it.
Sunday morning church. Okay, we'll see. Is a telltale sign that he came there to be in disturbance. He just admitted it right there. We'll see. Ain't gonna be no church today.
Live.
This is the one that always gets me. After we do this operation, he messed up.
And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going. Okay, so I am going inside now. What? Where's my phone? I need my phone. Hey, Meta, record.
in connection with
church is what the First Amendment is about.
This is disgusting.
Freedom to protest. I'm sure people here don't like it, but protests are not.
Imagine going to church with the perception that you ready to go get the word, and these motherfuckers barging, protesting with cameras and shit. Like, oh, this was a bad move. This is a bad move on Don Lemon's behalf, man. I don't got no remorse for whatever happened to him.
And there are people here who are, I'm looking at a young man who's in the corner. He's frightened. He's scared. He's crying. People are leaving church. One of the members who looks to be really upset, a young person, the pastor's trying to calm him down over there. Perhaps they should come in, pray together, and talk together. But anyways, if I were the pastor, I would offer a prayer. I would try to calm things down and say, listen, talk to you. We're all citizens. We're all believers and Christians. It may look...
But the pastor also said they didn't want to talk to him.
Look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here. So that is what I can say. I turned our camera off of them because they're giving some critical information here.
They act like he's doing this on behalf of black people. So it's good to have white allies here. This whole thing is white. This whole immigration, left versus right, this ain't black. Black people ain't got nothing to do with this. But they keep trying their hardest to convince black people that, look, this is our fight too. Man, get the fuck out of here, Don. You dumb ass.
Ready to go.
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up, and I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way. I don't think the answer is going to God's church.
You don't think this is peaceful?
Well, it's trespassing.
Nobody fighting.
It's trespassing.
Don said, you don't think this is peaceful? They went to the church to disrupt. He said that himself. You got to make people uncomfortable.
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
but there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest. I'm surprised that law enforcement has not showed up yet. They're going to take you outside of the church. What do you think of this?
I'm a Christian here that wants to praise the Lord with my son, and now I got to go home.
Yeah, that was interesting to
watch. That's why I'm here, Walter.
And you know, I just imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery.
So he was fully aware that this was uncomfortable and traumatic for the people that's here. But since I'm part of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and we fighting against the right, using immigration to do it, then it's okay. Nah, bro, that's just still a crime, bro. Still a crime.
Not kidding.
Oh, yeah, I see what they doing.
That's what protesting is about, and so...
That's what protesting is about, guys. Let's get into this indictment here and see what Don Lemon has going on and what he's looking forward to with the federal government. We've got the indictment. Several people are mentioning here, names you may know, names you may not know. We'll talk about it. So, we have the United States of America indictment versus Nikema Armstrong, Chantel Allen, William Kelly, Don Lemon, redacted. We've got Jamel Lundy. We've got Tarhern Cruz, and of course, Georgia Fort, who I mentioned before we're going to get into and talk about in another video. What happened? What went down? The introductory allegations, at all times relevant to this indictment. The city's church, to be referred to as the church, is a church house of worship located in St. Paul, Minnesota. On the morning of Sunday, January 18th at approximately 10:30 a.m., the church's pastor was leading the congregation in their worship service. That service, the church's pastor and the congregation were exercising and seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, a right that is also protected by a federal statute that the code is Title 18, United States Code, Section 248. After the service commenced, a group of approximately 20 to 40 agitators, including...
They could have protested outside. They could have went to the pastor's house. There's a million other ways they could have did this without going to that church, man. They should have never walked in that church. And I ain't no, super church guy. You feel me? But I would never, come on, man. You can't do that. That's fucked up.
All of the defendants named in this indictment entered the church in a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in acts of oppression, intimidation, which again is going to be the biggest point, especially when it comes to Don Lemon, threats, interference, and physical obstruction alleged herein. As a result of the defendant's conduct, the pastor and the congregation were forced to terminate the worship service at the church. Congregants fled to the church building out of fear for their safety. Other congregants took steps to implement an emergency plan, and young children were left to wonder, as one child put it, if their parents were going to die. It's not great. So count one, what do we have? Conspiracy against the right of religious freedom at a place of worship. The allegations set forth in paragraphs 1 through 4 of this indictment are realleged and incorporated herein by reference. Object of the conspiracy. We have all these folks here. They conspired, and Georgia Fort's included in that, along with Don Lemon. They conspired and agreed with one another and with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury to injure, oppress, threaten, again, intimidate. It's going to be the key word in my opinion. Multiple persons, including the clergy, staff, and congregants of the city's church, in the free exercise and enjoyment of the rights and privileges secured to them by the laws of the United States, and because of such persons having exercised such right, namely exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of worship, as we know. Manners and means. In order to achieve the object of the conspiracy, defendants Armstrong and Allen, we know what they did. Operation Pull Up. We're looking at what happened with Don Lemon because he's the one everyone is saying didn't do anything wrong. So what did Don Lemon and Georgia Fort do? It said they met at a shopping center for a pre-op briefing. It seems pretty clear to me, as we saw in the video. And they were about the target. They were talking about the target of their operation and providing instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. Once at the church, all the defendants entered the church to conduct a takeover-style attack and engaged in various acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. What are the overt acts? We had Don Lemon again and Georgia Fort, together with everybody else and the persons known and unknown by the grand jury, committed various overt acts, including but not limited to overt act 1. Armstrong, Nakima Armstrong, she posted about it on Instagram. I thought this was a clandestine operation. Either way, overt act number 2. On January 17th, Allen posted another flyer, and she added Chantel Allen. Chantel Allen posted a flyer. On the morning of January 18th, all the named defendants gathered with approximately 20 to 30 other co-conspirators for a pre-operation briefing led by defendants Armstrong and Allen at the parking lot of Cub Foods. Okay, so we know where that is. Overt act number 4. At the pre-operation briefing, Armstrong, Kelly, Allen, they advised Don Lemon, Georgia Fort, and the other people about the target of their operation, that they were going to a church, and providing instruction on how the operation would be conducted once they arrived at the church. Again, Don Lemon got all this on video, so why we're denying it, I have no idea. Overt act number 5. On the morning of January 18th, Don Lemon's listed here by himself. Defendant Don Lemon began live streaming on his internet-based show, The Don Lemon Show, where he explained to his audience that he was in Minnesota with an organization that was gearing up for a resistance operation against the federal government's immigration policies. And he took steps to maintain operational secrecy by reminding certain co-conspirators to not disclose the target of the operation and stepped away momentarily so his mic would not accidentally divulge certain portions of the planning session. He was a part of this. Don Lemon was a part of this. Then we know what happened with Nakima Armstrong. Don Lemon thanked Nakima Armstrong for what she was doing. He's a part of this. And assured her that he was not saying what's going on. Defendant Armstrong explained that Operation Pull-Up was a clandestine operation in which she and other agitators would show up somewhere that is a key location. Don't expect us, and we disrupt business as usual. That's what we're about to do right now. And defendant Don Lemon said he would see her there. Again, we. That's what we're about to do, and we disrupt business as usual. Don, there's no way he's good. Do y'all think these charges are going to stick? I want to know what y'all think in the comments in the chat. Because it seems like there's enough here for Don Lemon to be held accountable. Before heading to the church to join the co-conspirators, defendant Don Lemon advised his live stream audience that we're going to head to the operation. Again, we're not going to give any information away. And then the operational details that would disclose where he and his co-conspirators were heading. At the pre-op briefing, defendants Allen led other co-conspirators in chants that they would use at the church, including "This is what community looks like" and "Ice Out of Minnesota." We know all about that. And Nikema Armstrong.
He chanted with him and everything, yo. He was a part of it, yo. All right, so let's get back to let's get to Lil Durk. New paperwork dropped on Lil Durk case. Durk and Diddy response to the bill of particulars. Check this out. 10 pages. All right. Y'all see that? Defendant Dirk Banks and DeAndre Wilson hereby files his joint reply to the government's response to their supplemental brief in support of their motion to exclude proposed. So they try and get this evidence thrown out. They've been trying for a couple months now. It's basically evidence. It's irrelevant evidence. Music videos, rap lyrics that don't necessarily speak on the crime. But the feds is trying to use this video evidence and these rap lyrics to show that Durk is capable of pulling something like this off based off his rap lyrics. And DeAndre Wilson, is saying that if y'all gonna, his lawyer is saying, if y'all gonna use these lyrics, then I want a separation. I want to have a separate trial. I want a severance, is what it's called. Defendant requested hearing on this matter. This brief is based on the attached memorandum and exhibits and files and records in this case and any other evidence or arguments that may be permitted. The government's most recent letter regarding their proposed music evidence begins with the conclusory statement that the proposed music evidence is inextricably intertwined with the charges in this indictment. Basically, what the government is saying, that what the government was saying in the last letter to the judge was, this music evidence, even though it's irrelevant, it is key. We need this evidence to convince the jury of Lil Durk's guilt, which tells me in turn that if y'all have to use this evidence that's not really credible or don't really have no burns on this case, then y'all don't really have a case. Presumably, this is to circumvent. So this is Durk lawyer motion to recant. To rebuttal. All right. Evidence is strictly intertwined with the charges in this indictment. Presumably, this is to circumvent the notice and specified obligations under FRE 404B. In response to this letter, defendant filed their supplemental motion and detailed the two-pronged test the court should use to determine whether evidence should be considered inextricably intertwined under the law. Specifically, if the act constitutes a part of the transaction that serves as the basis for the criminal charge, or is necessary to permit the prosecutors to offer a coherent and comprehensible story regarding the commission of the crime. In the government response to the supplemental motion, they completely failed to address how any of the proposed evidence fits under the proper legal framework to determine whether something is inextricably intertwined. In fact, they seem to abandon that language altogether and shift to a new argument. In this response, the government now relies on non-legal, cognizable phrases, asserting that this evidence goes to the heart of the trial, and that these commercial recordings of performative art are relevant to unspecified core issues. This is the third theory the government has advanced to justify dragging these music videos into the case. All right, so if y'all can remember, the last time Durk lawyer filed a motion, a rebuttal motion, the government added completely new lyrics. Like they changed their whole initial argument. And with what's Durk lawyer name? What's Durk lawyer name, Al? What the lawyer is trying to say is they moving the goalposts. They just trying that they moving the goalposts. Drew Finland. The fact that the government failed to address whether these proposed evidence is inextricably intertwined should result in the court finding that they have abandoned that argument. In their response, the government stated the following: defendants do not credibly dispute the relevance of music emissions, nor meaningfully address or distinguish any case the government has cited, nor could they. This is patently wrong. As for the first part, the defendants attached the declaration of the leading expert in the country rap music lyrics, Eric Nielsen. He stated that these lyrics the government claimed were relevant and probative were neither, as they are generic and commonplace within the industry. The government offered no counter-argument to this fact, nor a declaration by an expert to the contrary. The unqualified attempts by prosecution or agents to ascribe a particular meaning to lyrics to make them relevant does not make them so. The government wants this court, and eventually this jury, to believe that the use term of like ops or even reference to shooting ops or firearms, evading law enforcement, paying cash are specific references to allegations in this case, which they are not. That's commonplace in most rap songs. And every rapper ain't locked up for murder for hire. The government cited some of those lyrics alongside general allegations in the chart in their response. The only fact that can be gleaned from the cited lyrics in this is that they are entirely non-specific. They reference neither the alleged victim nor any circumstances of this case, yet contain highly prejudicial statements that pose a substantial risk of jury confusion by being misconstrued as relating to these proceedings. And if not these allegations, is the jury meant to assume the lyrics refer to some other uncharged or unspecified incident left deliberately ambiguous by the government? Such tactics are improper and should be barred by this court before irreparable prejudice occurs. The government addresses very few of the arguments raised by the defendant and instead relies heavily on 3 cases that are not binding and easily distinguishable from the instant matter. Each will be addressed in turn. First, the government cited an 11th Circuit Court case. This case involved the son of a president of Liberia who was accused of superheading a government-sanctioned group that tortured their adversaries with gruesome and extreme measures, including maiming and decapitating individuals. These methods described in great details in the opinion of the court. In relevant part, the defendant was found with a notebook in his suitcase, and at the time of his arrest with his handwritten rap lyrics. The court, without engaging in much analysis, found the writings were admissible because the defendant reference to a particular organization showed that he was still connected to it at the relevant time, and it contradicted statements made by the defendant post-arrest. This case is distinguishable on many fronts. First, Mr. Banks did not make a post-arrest statement for which these lyrics could contradict. Second, the statements in the Belfast were found in the defendant's possessions, were handwritten and even signed by him, made specific reference to a name of groups that were part of the case, and directly contradicted post-arrest statements made by the defendant. The categorization of this case having anything to do with rap or rappers is really misleading. Belfast is much better categorized as dealing with admissibility of journal entries or poems. There were no industry professionals vetting those statements. The notebook was not run through a legal department. There were no ghostwriters or collaboration lyrics involved. that were not produced and edited by third parties before being released on commercial platforms in response to industry demands and norms. Further, and probably most important, the level of prejudice the statements involved could have caused within the context of allegations in this case, such as Belfast, would have been de minimis, as the fact regarding the torture and murders of many people were extraordinarily gruesome. This is not so here. The second case the government cites is the Sixth Circuit case, United States versus Stuckey. This case is informative as to exactly why the lyrics should be inadmissible here. In Stuckey, the court notes how the handwritten by defendant rap lyrics were so specific as to the allegations in the case that they were tantamount to a detailed confession. As a fact, autobiography statements of acts relevant to this case. So basically, they saying the lyrics that y'all using in Durk case is not him actually admitting to a crime, but y'all trying to use these other cases as a means to justify why Durk lyrics should be written. I mean, should be allowed in court. But in the Stuckey case, what he rapped about was so graphic and vivid, it basically was a confession. In Durk case, that's not what's going on. Y'all trying to make these lyrics apply where they really don't fit. They were handwritten. They were written by a defendant after the alleged incident occurred and described matching details of the incident, including wrapping the body of a witness in a blanket and putting it on the side of the road. Despite the obvious similarities, the court still conducted an analysis under FRE 404B. It noted the prejudicial nature of the lyrics, but ultimately held the probative value of these lyrics were highly enough to overcome any potential prejudice. Basically, he told so much that we had to let it in. Like, yeah, it might be prejudice, but these lyrics is similar to the case. They're not alleging that in Durk's situation. The generalized and generic statements proffered by the government in this case are exactly the type of lyrics that the court in Stuckey would have precluded. Even more telling is that the government cites this case and then argues that the court should not do analysis under 404B. So Durk is trying to have a bill of particulars. They trying to have a whole hearing on these lyrics. The government, which is trying to introduce the lyrics, don't want to have a hearing. You feel me? Which is crazy. Y'all want the lyrics in? Let's talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They want the judge to just rule on it without having a whole hearing on it. Which is what the court did there. This case is clearly distinguishable. The last case cited by the government is United States versus Prejudice. The defendant in that case made specific reference to the group he was alleged to have associated with in a RICO allegation and other specific references to another group his group was allegedly feuding with. The government offered one rap video to show evidence of that assertion in feud. Here there are no specific references to individuals or groups with which the defendant had beef amongst the whopping 12 songs. The whopping. They're trying to introduce 12 songs. Wow. The government seeks to introduce. There is not one name of an opponent mentioned. Further, this is not a RICO case, and there will not be any problem for the government showing that several of the defendants and witnesses in this case were associated with one another through a publicly incorporated business and rap label. It is clear from the above case law that despite the government assertion to the contrary and trying to shift the burden of admissibility onto the defendant, the question of admissibility of lyrics are viewed by the court under the lens of FRE 404B as set forth in the defendant's supplemental motion. The government has failed to provide sufficient notice to either the defendant or the court to permit the requisite analysis. In its response, the government repeatedly relies on the term premiered to identify the purported timing of the music evidence. That term is vague and is not recognized or meaningful marker within the music industry. Commercial music released through a major label typically undergoes an extensive multi-stage process well before public distribution, including writing, recording, editing, label review, legal review, music video production, post-production, and additional rounds of label and legal approval. As a result, the so-called premiere date, without further explanation, provides no reliable indication of when the content was created, finalized, and distributed. The government has previously misunderstood or misrepresented the timing of musical work it sought to introduce in this case. in the error that contributed to the second superseding indictment. That same deficiency is repeated in its response. Rather than conducting a meaningful investigation, the government appears to rely on undefined open source information while ignoring the realities of the music production process. Accordingly, the court should require the government to identify the source it relies upon to determine these purported premiere dates and to explain what that term is intended to signify in context. I think Durk gonna win this motion. Why my fucking computer don't read no more? She used to read. The fuck happened? The clearest indication that the government seeks to use this music evidence to invite improper publicities and emphasis is its reliance on a lyric attributed to Mr. Banks. I'm the type to hop on a flight with a warrant, you gotta catch me. As purported evidence that he attempted to flee the country at the time of his arrest 2 years later. The government position would require the court to accept that Mr. Banks was somehow predicting future events. These lyrics are not factually specific statements of the type deemed arguable probative by the Stuckey court, nor is there any evidence that Mr. Banks ever engaged in the conduct suggested by the lyrics. There was no known warrant at the time of his arrest, and Mr. Banks was previously on pretrial supervision in Georgia. He was found to be fully compliant until the case was dismissed. Absent any factual nexus, the lyrics have no relevance beyond inviting the jury to draw improper propensities or character inferences. To preserve fairness and to prevent injustice, the court should not permit such use of evidence. So what else? I think Durk gonna win this motion, y'all. We'll see. He ain't won too many motions, but I think he was gonna win this one. I really do. What else you send me? All I got. That's all. Oh, it's another page right here. Introduction. The Supreme Court has warned that he's still trying to get the indictment thrown out. Leaves the prosecution room to roam at large, to shift its theory for criminality so as to take advantage of each passing, I don't know what that word, of trial and appeal. With a vague indictment, the United States Attorney would have a free hand to assert the vital part of the indictment without reference to the grand jury. The law does not vest him with such authority. The prosecution is indeed roaming at large. And at the very least, a bill of particulars is necessary. Oh, they're still trying to get the bill of particulars to put that roaming to an end. The clearest example of the prosecution free hand, and one that we see unfolding in real time, is with respect to the nature of a quid pro quo that allegedly motivated the murder. Not one government witness has ever said that Mr. Banks paid for or offered to pay for the charged murder with music videos or rap lyrics.